out with setup throughout the day, anything like that. If you would like to, you can reach us out at myself personally at 575-654-8128 or on an email at bayardbeautification@gmail.com. And this event, just to give you a little feedback, is a really great success in the past. This will be our 4th annual. We call it annual because the past 2 years we weren't able to have it, but we're starting it back up. And this one's going to be one of the best ones we've ever had with live entertainment. It's going to be an event very similar to the Backpack Summerfest giveaway that you all had. That was a really great success. My daughters and I had the pleasure of attending, and you guys do really great with that event. So I hope to see that the school would like to participate or just get some, ideas, options, anything that you have to us to make this event great for the community. And if possible, maybe you all can help me put out some flyers to the students, because we are going to be advertising all around town and everything. But just so we make sure that all the kids in the community are aware of the event that we're going to have and are able to attend. 575-654-8128.
You talk faster than I can write. What's the last one?
8128.
8128.
Yes, sir.
Where's the location?
The whole event is going to be in the community center park and the Little League field, the Copper Little League field, and the community center as well. That whole block is going to be closed down, and it's a great, big, grand event if you haven't been able to see. Yeah.
Was there a posting on Facebook on that? Am I remembering correctly?
Yes. So I'm also the manager of our Facebook page. So you'll see a lot of our postings going on, just advertising this. It's under Bayard Beautification Committee on Facebook. And you can also message us there if any teachers or anybody have any questions.
So I'm happy to share your posts.
Thank you.
To our page so that you get the double promotion.
Great. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Thank you all.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Caitlin, I forgot to ask if there's anybody online for public comment.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Next, we'll move to number 4 action items. A, approval of board minutes from the July 20, 2026 regular board meeting and the August 5th, 2026 special board meeting.
I move we approve the minutes as presented.
The motion
Second.
and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye, please.
Aye.
Motion passes. Next B, consideration and approval of resolution to determine necessity for lease purchase of education technology equipment.
Mr. President, I move that we approve the consideration and approval of resolution to determine necessity for lease purchase of educational technology equipment. This was discussed in Finance Committee and our bond council representative was there. And I believe she's here tonight to speak on it.
Okay, have a motion?
Second.
Motion and second. Further discussion?
The information provided was related to the electronic I'm sorry, the ETN or what?
Yes, that's correct. And she's online if you want to direct questions.
So
Mr. Guadiana, can I ask you to use your microphone, please?
is the lease purchase
Mr.
to
can-
take up?
Your microphone, yes.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Is the lease purchase agreement going to consume the entire amount of the bonds?
Good evening, member body on it. So these are separate programs. We do have that $6 million of GEO bond authorization that voters approved at your November 2025 election. But this is an education technology note for the amount of up to $825,000. You know, that amount was determined based off of your current cash balances too, and will not impact, you know, your general obligation bond program.
So the question still remains, will the lease encompass the entire amount, the 800,000 plus?
Yes.
Okay. And that won't have any impact on the 10% of funding that we need to reserve from, as a possible contribution for the building of new schools?
Yep. So this $825,000 of education technology notes, it comes from the tax rate, the ETN tax rate that the district levied in our current tax year. It doesn't take out of that $6 million of GEO bond authorization. So we will still have, you know, the GEO monies ready for you guys to be able to have access to when you're ready for that GEO bond sale.
And is that GEO bond then equal to the 10 mils that we're supposed to have, 10 mil levy? Oh,
Yep, absolutely. So we actually did just wrap up tax rate setting with the Public Education Department. And for next year, tax year 2026, we don't anticipate a change to your tax rate. The district's overall residential tax rate will continue to be $10.10. The only change, though, is that we ended the education technology note tax rate next year to create room for your GEO bond tax rate. So overall, though, no changes to your tax rate at that 10 mil level.
thank you.
Thank you.
Good. Any further questions or discussion? Then we have a first and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Motion passes. Next, we have C, discussion and approval of the FY 2023 audit.
Good evening, Mr.
evening.
President, members of the board superintendent. Great to be here. I did bring some printouts for board members, and then Scott can, like last time for fiscal year 22, kind of just walk through the report with you all and the findings as well, which the findings for the special audit are included here. So it is a little bit lengthy, so bear with us. And you can feel free to stop him at any time if you have questions, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you, Millie.
Yes.
Thank you.
Is this the same that's in our packet as well? Okay.
It should be the same as the PDF in your packet. And I'm not sure if Caitlin can share the screen for the members of the public on that. If you have that file from the packet, feel free to do so. Okay, Scott.
Well, good evening, Board President.
Hello.
We're here to go through the results of the fiscal year 23 audit. So the district is a couple of years behind still. Should actually be starting the 26 audit. So we are a couple of years behind. I would say the one positive thing here to take away is 23 is done and released by the state auditor a few weeks ago. However, we'll dive into the report, but at the end of the day, the audit opinion itself is a disclaimer of opinion, so we are not able to issue an opinion on the financial statements, and there's a few reasons why. We'll talk about those in a minute. So I will just jump into a few things I wanted to point out in the report. The report itself does have all the schedules and the statements that you would expect to see for the district within the report, all the footnotes, all the supplementary information. And so that's all here. Audrey did mention that the special audit report is also included as required in the report. And in the future years, probably starting with 24 or maybe even 25, but there should be a tracker that the district has and start, working on those findings and providing an update to the status of those findings. So that'll be something, I know, additional burden for the district to tackle, but it's important to start getting some of those comments out of the report. Okay, I mentioned the report itself. It does cover a number of pages, and I think we'll just jump right into the page number 1, the audit opinion. So within this report, there's actually 3 separate reports by the auditors. There's the audit opinion report. There's the report under generally accepted government auditing standards. And then there's also a report on the uniform grant guidance that we report on we call it the single audit. It's the federal awards audit. And then we've also got some findings. I believe most of them repeat from the previous year and fiscal year 22. So like I said, I'm going to jump into it. You see right away that the report on the financial statements themselves, we do issue a disclaimer of opinion, which means that we can't provide an opinion. And then there's some reason for the disclaimer at the bottom of page 1, inconsistent financial schedules. They were incomplete and contained discrepancies as we went through the audit. They didn't reconcile back to underlying accounting records or some unreconciled accounts related to subsidiary ledgers and other documentation. And then also there's outstanding cash transfers for certain bank accounts. It looks like some of these transfers may have been cleared in fiscal year 25. Won't know until we get to that. We weren't able to test anything because we did not receive anything on those transfers. What that sort of means is I think it's primarily related to cash. So if you looked at cash in the general fund at the end of the year, fiscal year 23, it shows a deficit of $1.7 million. And you say, well, how can we operate with a deficit? Well, overall, there is cash in the district. There's cash in the debt service funds, related to where property tax revenue goes into. There's cash in the capital projects funds, and there's cash in some of the special revenue funds. And as a school district, you have a lot of special revenue funds because virtually every source of revenue from the federal government, from the state, from local, they each get their own self-balancing set of, balance sheet and income statement that's included in these financial statements. That's what, of course, makes these financial statements so long. Other thing to point out is we really look at the audit as 3 components. The financial statement audit, then there's a compliance audit in accordance with the state audit rule. And that compliance audit requires us to look at certain things like the district's adherence to the School Personnel Act, procurement, always a big thing for the auditors to look at. If you got gas cards, purchasing cards, mileage and per diem, we look at and test all those areas. There's probably, and deletions of capital assets, there are probably, 10 different areas under the state audit rule that we do look at. And then also in the financial statement, or the independent auditor's report, it covers a bunch of pages, right? And it talks about management's responsibility, which is to design an effective internal control structure and to take responsibility for the financial statements. The district did contract with us to also prepare the financial statements, but we prepare them from the district's books and records. And of course, the auditors have responsibility. Ultimately, the biggest responsibility we have is to issue an opinion on the financial statements. There's several different levels of opinions. There's the unmodified or clean opinion. There's an opinion where you might have a qualification to certain areas, like qualification to receivables or capital assets or something like that. And then there's the disclaimer of opinion, where we just can't issue an opinion. And that has a lot, I think, to do in this case with the cash balances, and the deficit cash and some of the activity associated with that. So hopefully, as we move forward to the future, that disclaimer can be lifted. There's required supplementary information, and the required supplementary information is primarily related to the pension and retiree health plan. And then there's also supplementary information, which includes a schedule of expenditures of federal awards. And then there's a number of schedules in here that are required under the state audit rule like the, detailing out the PED cash report, and other supplementary information like pledge collateral and deposit accounts and things like that. Then I would just take you to page 4. That's the balance sheet of the organization. Overall, you can see at the end of the year, there's $2.5 million of cash. And sort of as you go through, you can see capital assets, which we still haven't got good detail on the capital assets to ultimately issue any kind of opinion. And then there's some other categories, deferred inflows and outflows related to the pension plan. You can see, the bond, what's the long-term bond payable, and then what's the current bond payable. So you see, like, for example, 420,000 in the middle of the page, that's the current portion of the bond payable. That's the portion of the principal of the bond that gets paid down in fiscal year 24. And then the pension plan, you can see that there's, different numbers here. It says you have a pension liability of $25 million. That pension liability is not an actual liability the district has to pay with their cash. But there's an accounting standard that says if you've got a retiree health plan or a pension plan, you're required to put on the cost share employer, being the district, their unfunded pro rata portion of the pension plan. So I wouldn't be too worried about the pension plan here, other than to note that the pension plan and the retiree health plan are underfunded. So that ends up, the underfunding position ends up in everybody's financial statements. There is the other pages, page 5 is the statement of activities, which shows, again, both these statements are like on a full accrual basis. So the district really starts out with a cash basis, and they maintain their books primarily on a cash basis. And then there's adjustments made to take us to modified accrual basis of accounting. And then these two schedules you can see here on page 4 and 5 are the full accrual statements that pick up everything. They pick up capital assets, debt, other long-term liabilities like the pension plan. I would say probably the most important fund you'll see is on page 6, and that is the general fund. And you can see middle of the page of page 6, where we see the general fund has a cash overdraft of $1.641 million, because it appears, based on the accounting through 23, that they had to borrow, the district had to borrow those funds from capital projects and debt service funds that had sufficient cash in there, which at the end of the day, those are restricted funds and you really cannot borrow with them. That's a violation of for example, the bond covenants and things like that. That's just the position you're in. Perhaps those transfers in 25 might take care of it. We'll have to see as we move forward. And there's other funds presented here. These are the major funds, the larger funds, and behind the footnotes that you see in here that cover many pages, behind the footnotes will be the non-major funds. So like I said, in a school district, there are so many funds. There's probably 40 or 50 funds here because of all the different funding sources. And then there's some reconciliation schedules in here on page 8. And then the budgets, the income statement of the major funds on page 9, 10. 11 has a reconciliation schedule. And then pages 12, 13 through 16 cover major fund budgets. And I think we have some budget findings, so we'll probably talk about that as we move forward. And then there's some custodial funds. These custodial funds were really not tracked in the district's books and records. They were sort of kept offline. The custodial funds are primarily related to the activity funds of the district. And so, as we move forward, this fund might actually need to be moved into its own separate fund, a special revenue fund like most districts have. But there's an analysis the districts need to go through to see what kind of administrative control. Oh, that's on page 17 and 18 are the custodial funds. That's where all the activity funds are right now. But most districts have moved those a few years ago into a special revenue fund because of the level of administrative control. So that'll be looked at in the future as management does an analysis of their administrative control on the funds. And then there's all kinds of, footnotes that really describe the organization. and describes some of the balance sheet activity of the organization from pages 19 to 41. And I'm not going to go through any of those really in great detail. Page 40, each flip to page 40, you can see that there are 6 funds that exceeded the budget. So, you have to ensure that you have proper budget authority to spend money. And the budget adjustment request may have not been done timely or accurately, but it just results in an over budget finding. And then the other item I would point you to is that, there's still a special audit that's going on, the phase 2 of this special audit related to, I think, capital projects and bonds. And then that, in future reports that, we'll look at the resolution of those findings. There was a new accounting pronouncement. I don't think it had any impact on the district. And then there's some required supplementary information schedules starting on page 42, related to the pension and retiree health plan. That goes through page 46. And then there's starting on page 47 is a discussion on the non-major funds. And you see like a whole number of them listed here through page 50. So you can see that there is a lot of other smaller funds. And you can see balance sheets and income statements of these funds. We said, I'm not going to go through those because it would take, a long time to go through all these. But that being said, each fund does have its own balance sheet and income statement. And then I would take you to page 73. 73 is the schedule of expenditures of federal awards. That just simply details to the district what funds that you had, what programs that you had that are considered federal awards. Most of those federal awards are passed through from the public education department. And then we as auditors do issue an opinion on the compliance with the federal awards. We did actually issue an unmodified or clean opinion on compliance with the federal awards requirements for the programs that we looked at. And we'll talk about that in a minute, but you can see that the district does get almost $4.7 million of federal awards in this year. I think probably in, future years that starts to drop because we can see just a quarter of a way down the page on page 73, you can see that you've got just almost $1.1 million related to some COVID relief funds. And so those have mostly or completely disappeared at this point. Page 74 is just a reconciliation of the schedule of expenditures of federal awards back to the federal revenue that the district has. And then page 75, starting on page 75, this is some schedules, or these are schedules under the state audit rule. Like you have to have appropriate pledge collateral for your deposits. You have to list out your individual deposit and or investment accounts. And then page 77 breaks out the PED cash report, detailing by funds. And then I will just take you to, that covers sort of the required schedules under the state audit rule. On page 82, this is where we talk about the compliance with the government auditing standards. It's a 2-part report, starting again on 82, where we talk about internal controls over financial reporting, and then 83, compliance and other matters. And in here, we list in summary any audit findings that need to be presented under government auditing standards. And I see that there are 9 findings. We'll talk about that. And then page, well, I guess there's no page numbers on that. But on the next page after 83, which is 84, 85, and 86, that's the federal awards report. That one has no findings related to that. It's the clean opinion on that. Page 87, the summary schedule of prior audit findings. So in the prior year, there were 10 audit findings, and I see that 3 of them were resolved. I think the big one that's resolved, and this is a positive, that there's lack of supporting documentation related to like invoices and purchase orders and things like that. And The district did get some better record keeping. And actually we were able to get virtually all the documents that we requested. So we consider that resolved. There were some fuel cards, the usage of those fuel cards where controls need to be improved. That was resolved. And reconciliation of bank accounts, they've been reconciled. But like I said, the next step, the transfers that needed to be booked or maybe not booked, that piece hasn't been done. So there's actually been work done to try to get to a point where they've been reconciled. In other words, starting with the bank and going to the book, the general ledger of the district, and the reconciling items between like outstanding checks and deposits in transit. And then page 88, if I had 30 seconds to visit with the board, I would just simply go to this page. This page has a summary of the audit results. As I mentioned, disclaimer of opinion, internal control over financial reporting. There are material weaknesses. There are significant deficiencies and material non-compliance. I think we did have one federal award finding, but it wasn't a material federal award finding. We'll talk about that here in just a bit. And then you can see the two federal awards we looked at, the Education Stabilization Fund, which is the federal COVID monies, and then a comprehensive literacy and state development grant. And then the financial statement findings, they'd start on page 89, internal control over financial reporting, which is repeated. The district, there's a number of sort of items here. One is the accrual accounting, didn't provide us the entries, activity funds. We talked about the activity funds, which is sitting in the custodial fund right now. Cash transfers, the almost $2.7 million of cash transfers that occurred in 25. I think to maybe rebalance the deficit of cash, but we personally don't know until we delve into that. There's capital assets that need to be worked on, and the scheduled expenditures of federal awards, we had to prepare that. So that's something the district should do. You can see management's response on page 90. They talk about change in account and personnel, and that they're working to get a better process in place, including corrective action plans to try to resolve these findings. We do have on page 91 compliance with the School Personnel Act, and it looks like they did make some improvement over the condition related to substitute teacher certifications. One could not be located, but I think that's an improvement from fiscal year 22. Page 92, the budget over budget, exceeding the budget authority for those 6 funds. We talked about that briefly a minute ago, and that's detailed out here. Management's response, they do acknowledge the finding and do agree that that is necessary to implement stronger budgetary controls. And then page 93, use of restricted funds for general operations. As I mentioned, that there's a large amount, $1.6 million that the district had to borrow from restricted resources to make the general fund able to pay its bills, because the general fund is the primary bill payer of the general operations of the district. Certification of year-end inventory on page 94, that's just a non-compliance issue. No improvement there. Purchases, controls over purchases, a small number, but still just something to work on. Make sure that when the purchasing process happens, you start with a requisition, you go to the purchase order, and then once you have a purchase order, then you can order the goods or services. Once you order the goods or services, you get them and approve the fact that you've received those, and then pay the bill or bills. And so there was some progress made there, but one observation there. We call it an other matter. So under the state audit rule, we're required to really bring to the board's attention any matters of good accounting practice and good accounting principles. And I would say if this was another state, most other states don't go to this level of detail. It would just be in a separate letter to management, just with that observation, but we're required to report that here. Of course, the late audit report. And that late audit report, a couple of years late at this point. And so that's, under the state statutes, it's required to be delivered on a June 30 year end, no later than November 15th to the state auditor's office. Page 97 talks about internal controls over some payroll disbursements. And we noticed that, some issues related to additional compensation in a state program, timesheets, in a extended learning program, timesheets that did not exist. And then the third bullet point, 2 timesheets didn't, it was observed that the signatures for the employee and the employee supervisor are identical. So somebody initialed it that was maybe just the employee supervisor or just the employee. 9 timesheets it was observed wasn't signed by the supervisor, and the district did not have an established salary schedule in effect for administrators for fiscal year 23. So we consider that a deficiency in controls and material noncompliance. Page 98, the PED cash report. So the district is required within 30 days to submit after year end to submit to the Public Education Department detail on their cash accounts and related activity. You can see there's some big differences between the financial statements, and there was actually a revised PED cash report. You still get penalized for that. I mean, you don't get that waive that it's late, but you can sometimes submit a revised report. Even with the revised report, there's still substantial differences. So there's obviously some serious work that needs to be done there. And then the last finding that I'm going to talk about is a federal awards finding. And that really has to do with the late data collection report to the federal government. So if you accept federal funds, you're required to report on those in audited financial statements no later than 9 months after the end of the fiscal year. We just did that and had that signed off a week or so ago by the district. So that one, of course, that filing is done and submitted now. So that covers the findings that we have related to the audit. And then there's a number of pages on the special audit. That'll be something that the district really has to start working on, putting a tracker in place and getting these things resolved that were discovered as a result of the special audit. And I'm looking at that right now, which goes through page 157. And there's actually 23 of those findings to work on resolution. We did have an exit conference. You can see on page 158 before the report was submitted to the state auditor for their desk review. You can see the attendees on page 58. And then a corrective action plan related to the audit findings, which is required because you accept federal funds. You have to have a corrective action plan on all current year audit findings. And so that covers the results of the audit. Happy to answer any questions anybody might have.
Sure. Let me see if I can word this without getting in trouble, because I'm pretty good at getting in trouble. But what is your recommendation to straighten this mess out?
Get as much help as you can and get it straightened out. I know that I understand that there's a new CFO that's been hired. And I understand that maybe there's some staffing needs that need to be rebuilt and retrained. So there's a lot of work to do, and any outside contractor help that you can get. And I think you still do have a contract with Vertex Education to help assist with some portions of getting things resolved, like, for example, capital assets. The detail is just not that great, and that needs to be rebuilt. So there's a lot of work to do. And being that you're 2 years behind, in a few months you'll be 3 years behind. So maybe we can keep you at just 2 years behind by working on the 24 audit. I know the 24 audit, we've opened up the secure portal for documents to be uploaded, and that'll be started once the documents are uploaded. And maybe we can, at least stay 2 years behind and then continue working on the audits to get caught up. I'm hopeful that, we can finish up the special audit related to bonds and the capital projects and capital assets, and get caught up. But there's a lot of work to do to get caught up. I'm sure the superintendent was happy to see the special audit report. I'm saying that tongue in cheek, of course, because there is a lot of work to do.
Can I ask you to, is your microphone on?
I think it's on.
That's better.
Maybe I'm not talking well enough into it.
I think you're a little tall, and so. I just want to make sure everybody online can hear you. Thank you.
All I know is if I ran my businesses the way the school corporation's been run, I would have been bankrupt the second month I was in business.
Let me ask you a question on page 100. If the question comes up is who's responsible for this, and how did this already, it already happened, and we're trying to move forward to correct everything. Okay. But going back on this, it says potential from the 22 audit, it says potential fraud, embezzlement, larceny, misappropriation, and paying money for services not rendered. So my question to you all is, if that's what you're reporting and that's what's here that you all see, would you be able to provide to this board the specific documentations that we gave you all to look at, so that we might be able to proceed with, okay, who was responsible for this, and maybe get an outside agency to investigate and file possible charges if that's the route that the board goes. But is that an option that you guys will be able to give us specific items that we would need to move forward?
Yes, absolutely, Mr. President, members of the board superintendent. We, the way this normally occurs in the process with special audits is they are turned over to the state auditor's office, which they do have a copy of this phase 1 report. And then they are responsible for referring to outside agencies such as the NM Department of Justice, or what we know as the Attorney General, or the DA, or state police, or local law enforcement, or a combination of all of the above, right? And so they are required by state statute to refer for criminal, violations, which there are here, it appears. As well, legal counsel would be meeting with you all in closed session, executive session, to determine what actions the district may want to take. I'll give the example of Deming. We did a special audit. They decided to proceed with a civil case, for example, just to kind of hold that line and say, you know what, if you want to do fraud, don't come here to Cobre, right? We are going to hold you accountable. Not here, never again. Don't do it. And just really holding that tone at the top and that ethical stance that the board really needs to show, and that you're not going to tolerate that type of behavior ever again. Because look at the effects that it's all had, and the amount of money that it's cost, and time and effort. And so there are a lot of paths that it could take, I guess is what I'm saying. But us as your auditors, we're happy to assist in any way. Just over the past couple of months, we've been helping with Ethics Commission and NMDOJ on cases that have happened in other districts and other entities. As they request information from us, subpoena us, then we get permission from the district, of course, first, and then we're able to provide that to them for any actions that need to be taken. Likewise, if you do decide on your own accord to pursue something civil, we're happy to work with legal counsel and provide any information that's needed.
Thank you.
Sure.
So at this point, there's what it sounds like we just wait to see if the referral to the whatever agency you mentioned, or you mentioned a few agencies, if the referral goes to them and they contact us. So is it maybe your opinion just to wait on what's going to happen on that part?
I would touch base with or have the superintendent touch base with the state auditor's office and see if they've made any referrals.
Okay.
And if there's anything that needs to be done on the criminal side. As to the civil side, like recovery of funds, if there was wrongdoing, in any areas, then that's a closed session, executive session discussion with your legal counsel. And you do have the fiduciary responsibility to consider all those paths yourselves. So I wouldn't wait per se. I would take those two paths. I would consult with legal counsel on the civil side. I would check with state auditor's office on referrals on the criminal side.
Understood. Thank you.
Sure.
And just one more thing, sort of related to the finding itself, there's a recommendation there, and management's response. You want to add anything to that, Audrey?
As far as, well, yes, for this finding, we do have a lot of recommendations here. Definitely an internal auditor, putting in risk assessment into place. We recommended the entire payroll process needs to be analyzed. And I know you have taken some steps, the district has, with tracking of time, which is excellent. Leave balances. The internal auditor is a really big piece, and I know that's kind of gone by the wayside. And I know there's budget concerns, but they normally pay for themselves. So once a district is on their feet, especially for entities who have had such, severe troubles, an internal auditor can be really, really good to help on the proactive side, right? Instead of you get to where something has already happened and then the external audit has to come in reactively. So internal audit is great for risk assessment, and they normally, like I said, pay for themselves. And then just accountability, which I have heard the various boards and superintendents, trying to implement changes in accountability. I think you could step up that pace some. So now that you have a stronger finance team, which was really, the kind of the bottleneck in one position, trying to do past, present, and future all at once, which is impossible. Now, with a contractor in place and then another resource with your CFO, your new CFO, I think that's where you're going to start seeing the district make some traction. So.
Thank you.
Sure. Good question.
A question as well. In one of the findings, I remember seeing a reference related to adopting internal controls here in-house, but it referred to the state PFAS or the department.
Oh, the PSAB.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Is that adequate for us to reference as our internal controls, or do we need to make that a local document?
In some sense, it's adequate for your internal controls, but there may be procedures that need to be tailored to the district itself.
Yeah, that was my impression.
And also, I will add that the PSAB is sometimes outdated. I haven't looked at the most recent date, but PED does not update that every year, and it could be very old actually. So we'd have to look at that. But it's a good starting point for your basics, right? And then you can take those internal controls from the PSAB, and then definitely make the audit committee, finance committee can make recommendations. That's our statutory duty. Make recommendations to you all as to policy changes, any procedures that they might direct the superintendent to implement, things like that.
And you mentioned repeat findings. Do you have a log on how far back they go?
We do. You can tell by the numbers of them. I think some go back to at least 21. I saw
There's one from 2018.
2018.
2018?
Yeah,
Yes.
if you look at the numbers on the findings, the first 4 digits are the year.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yes. And then sometimes we'll clear a finding and then do a new one. It just kind of depends on the condition of the finding. But this has been, a systemic issue in the district for a long time. Yeah. But on the positive side, I do see some progress, which is great. And with a strong finance team, which is what you really, really need, for finances and compliance, I think you'll be in a much better position going forward. And good leadership to hold the line. And you're not going to be anybody's best friend. I mean, unfortunately,
Definitely.
it's a really hard job of a leader to make changes. And I respect you all for, you're trying to hold the line, right? You're trying to say, not here, not in Cobre. It's not going to happen. Have that good tone at the top.
Thank you, Audrey.
Thank you very much for this.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
If there's any more questions or concerns, we'll need a motion to approve the FY.
I move that we approve the 2023 audit.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on this?
Just thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
For putting up with me.
Oh, sure.
All in favor signify by saying aye, please.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you both very much.
I've got multiples. You want one?
We'll move next to D, discussion and approval of FY 27 final award Food Bridge Fund 27597.
So, Mr. Carrillo, this is an award. It's $10,000. And we still are waiting for, oh, now I lost my PDF. I'm sorry. We still are waiting for the final approval from PED. It needs to go to the OBMS process, but it will be $10,000 for food for outside of the school day. So it's been awarded. There's a couple more steps that we need to take to have the final award, but we will be receiving $10,000.
Okay, thank you. You're welcome. I'll need a motion.
I move to approve this final award Food Bridge Fund, and we did discuss it in Finance Committee.
Is a motion, a second?
Second.
A second. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Okay, next we have E, discussion and approval to issue RFPs for food service contractor. Includes cost analysis.
So, Mr. Carrillo, you should have received, and members of the board, sorry, I don't mean to just address our president. You should have received further documentation from Charlene this morning. Dr. Brunton has done an analysis, and I'll hand it over to her in a minute. You should have also received the summary of findings reports from CNR Resource that gives you a little bit more of a description about the financial issues that we've had with this fund, and a memo that they asked me to provide for them. There was some questions in their findings that they wanted us to address. And so this is one of two memos. The initial memo, I had to say to them, the documentation that you are requesting simply does not exist. And then they said, okay, if it does not exist, what are you going to do to correct these irregularities in the finances? And so that resulted in the memo that you now have. We have to be very careful about the transfers of funds. We need to implement internal controls, which is something that is repeated over and over. And that is where we said we would look for a food service vendor so that would assist us in addressing the issues that are in the audit report from CNR Resource. And Dr. Brunton, do you want to speak about your analysis?
Good evening, members of the board, President Correa. I submitted just a quick overview of how food service usually functions, mostly for myself to learn a little bit more about the New Mexico state. And one thing that you will see on the spreadsheet that should be attached to the report we are spending a lot of money, a significant portion of the food service fund on the staff salary. I actually, over the weekend, after I submitted this report, I looked a little bit more at what the standard is across the state and the nation. And the recommendation is that salaries and benefits take about the 50, maybe 52, 54% of the total budget. In our case, it's at about 90%. So it's a significant portion of the budget. And again, we are looking at the previous year because this year we actually started on a better note. As of at least the first month, our spending on salaries and benefits is more than the expected norm. And you will see that $192,670, and they rounded up a little bit the numbers, were moved to the general operation fund to cover for the shortage that was incurred again last fiscal year. So we definitely need to have more responsible management of the resources. This is a reimbursement fund, so it's actually reimbursed per student meals, eligible student meals served. I would like to have a little bit more information, but I don't have access to the number of students who receive meals for breakfast and lunches at each school, why we're hiring a certain number of staff for each school. So it would be great to look a little bit more into why we're spending so much money on staff salaries. And if we consider the food service options, again, in this state, other states, some districts go with the food management companies. And I kind of put a little bit of information how third-party contracts work, how they are reimbursed based on the fee, administrative fee, and then they are actually reimbursed based on those eligible student meals. And they usually provide the food purchases, the menu, the staffing, training, small supplies, things like that. The district still has the authority over the equipment, especially large equipment, and the district can also retain ownership of the hiring process to make sure that the people do not lose their job. So there's a little bit of space to negotiate the contract. I attached some of the samples of the contracts, like the one from Nevada district contract, just as an example, and provided an average employee paid breakdown for the third-party contractors to compare what we are paying to the kitchen food service staff. Do you have any questions?
Was our food service department given this cost analysis or brought into the conversation?
I will be honest, this is actually the step that I would like to take, and I just gained access to Visions on Friday morning. And then I had some time to get full access to the previous year, this year, because I knew it's taken me time to get to know the systems. And the report should have been presented by Friday afternoon. So I only had a few hours to work with the vision system. I did some research before when I started. And yes, I would love to work with the food department on getting access to the meals numbers, the staffing decisions, and things like that. That would take a lot more time. And I did not reach out because I did not want to put the pressure of a few hours drop everything right now, and let's work on this together. I don't think it would have been fair, especially when the staff are just back to school and they have students to feed. So I did not reach out because I did not want to put that pressure on the staff, especially when the kids should be fed. But yes, that would be the next step.
Okay, thank you.
So so I can clarify this. You're asking us to approve or issue an RFP for food service contract. And you presented this nice analysis for us. Thank you very much. But none of this has been discussed with the department head of the food services, Dr. Gutierrez?
That's correct. We were,
And Dr. Gutierrez, can I just very quickly, at this time, I'm not asking you to approve anything. I'm just sharing this information for Dr. Gutierrez, because this is one of the funds that we have the largest gap between what we received in terms of funding and what the expenditures were last year. For us to actually make the proposal to explore this further, we would need to submit the RFP, and that would be that lengthy 30-day process that has a specific state protocol that we have to follow. Again, we just did not have time to do that, but we would like to pursue that.
and like I shared with you at the special board meeting, and we had to turn this around for this board meeting quickly to get you as much information as possible. We want to engage in this process in a thoughtful and strategic manner. We're not in a rush to issue the RFP. We just want you involved in the entire process. If it needs to come back to the September meeting, it can. But given that we had findings and one of the corrective action items was to explore the RFP, I am obligated to explore it because CNR Resources wanted a corrective action plan from me.
So by issuing an RFP right now for a food service contractor, we're not, you're just going out to check on things, right? It's not, they're going to
Right. And we can
pick something today and replace.
Oh, no. It would, just writing it would take 30 days, and then we would still have to put it out. We would need to wait for a minimum of 3 contractors to respond. It doesn't mean that we're going to have people respond on immediately. That could take another 30 to 60 days. So we're looking probably in the spring to finalize an RFP. It's not going to be immediate.
I have a question, and maybe it doesn't go to you, it could go to people that work with finance. Why isn't that we don't have the data from our own systems as to the expenditures and the tracking of those expenditures?
That's a really good question. Not everything has been documented in prior years. And so we have to discover a lot of this information through visions and going through cabinets, and it has to be compiled because not everything was documented.
And in the quarterly reports, that would be the line item expenditures. Was anything there, do we know, that would show that this is disproportionate to previous years or previous quarters?
It should be. It should be in all those financial reports from prior years. That's why I have personally questioned, how did we get to $200,000 at the end of the year? Why was it not caught? If it was in all the reports, somebody should have caught it.
Dr. Gutierrez, may I also make a comment?
Yes, ma'am.
When we've been looking at some of these item lines, accounting lines, the notes with details are also very vague sometimes, and they do not provide sufficient detail where the money went and what exactly was purchased or how the money was expended. So that's one of the things that we are going to correct, to make sure that we train the staff to provide more specific notes. So we actually know in the future and future generations can actually go back and look at that and know exactly what that money was spent. Quite a few notes are so generic that it's just very hard to make any kind of conclusion or analysis.
And when she says notes, who is she referring to?
Notes in like purchase orders.
Okay.
And that's why we now require itemized purchase orders. So we can't just say, we're going to Walmart to buy snacks. We are saying, what snacks are you buying? Are you buying 2 cases of water? Are you buying graham crackers? We want itemized purchase orders, no more just, $500 worth of snacks.
And if the board chooses today to pass the RFPs or to issue an RFP, great. And if they do not, do we have another plan B or C for this?
Well, that's part of the plan, but the next step would be definitely we are putting in some really tight systems of control. I'm approving every order every week. I want to know exactly what's being ordered. If I find an irregularity, I do ask Ms. Grijalva, like, why are we buying so much of this? Is that really a necessary expenditure? So we're really, really tightening up how much money is being spent, and we're tracking every cent that goes out of this district. You're welcome.
So does the board, what does the board wish to do?
Mr. Carrillo, I move that we table this so that our new CFO has the opportunity to speak with our nutrition team to involve them in the process. And then we have it on our September board agenda.
Have a motion to table. And there's a second. So motion to table and second. Any further discussion? So in essence, Dr. Gutierrez, you mentioned everything wouldn't be finalized, but looked at probably in the spring. Are we
Correct.
looking at maybe even next school year
Correct.
to start?
Is that otherwise we would have a contract that doesn't follow our fiscal year, which we could do, but I think it would be best if we had all contracts following the fiscal year, which would be the start of July 1.
Understood.
And we'll just monitor it internally
Okay.
until we enter into a contract, should we enter into a contract.
So there's a motion and a second. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. Next, we'll have F, discussion and approval of 2026-27 athletic handbook.
President Carrillo, members of the board, today I come to you with the updated handbook for our athletic handbook. Of course, it is, the clarification was the suspension days for those events, and they are gonna reflect calendar days. So if a student gets, let's say, in trouble, let's say for a fight, not only will he or she be suspended from school 1 or 3 days, they will be suspended from all activity for 5 days, and it's going to continue to accrue. If a student gets to their 3rd offense, it'll ultimately result to them being permanently removed from all activities for 1 academic school year. Of course, we want to continue to have that high standard for our students. So, of course, I ask it for their approval for this athletic handbook.
That was one of the changes, or that was the main change that you said?
Yes,
I wouldn't
yes.
think I was here for last one.
No, yeah. So that was the recommendation that the board had, just to have that clarification
Okay.
of what we meant for as far as suspension, because there's suspension from on the school side, but also we wanted to reflect suspension on the activity side as well. So of course, in order for us to do that, I do agree that it's a completely no activity in that respected activity, I should say.
Understand.
That includes practices.
That's include practices, that includes games, that includes if my cousin is playing over here, they can't attend either. Yeah, yes, sir.
There was a second request though, and the second request related to mentioning the availability of use or coverage by the school insurance when there's an injury sustained in the sport.
Absolutely. So just to elaborate on that, of course, I remember we had that discussion, but during that time, I said if there's a policy that was developed and of course up for a discussion with the board, and it's something that I need to enforce 100%, I will enforce that. However, to my knowledge and of course looking through it, I don't think there's
no policy.
There's no policy on it. So I would recommend if that was a consideration, possibly considering that policy.
And
I think so.
you had requested a presentation about insurance from legal. Ms. Gallegos would not be the appropriate person. So we need to identify the appropriate counsel that would advise us on the insurance so that they could come to the September 14th board meeting to do that presentation you requested.
Would that be Palms?
I don't know if it's going to be POMS or NIMSIA. Yeah, so
Might be. Yeah.
I have to identify the appropriate attorney
Okay,
to get you that presentation.
okay.
There was a section here that I'm trying to look for, and I didn't, I thought I had noted it, but maybe you can help me. On reporting injuries, it says significant injuries should be reported. Shouldn't all injuries be reported? At least reported and documented, whether they did something, but I mean, significant, what would be significant?
So significant is of course getting, I would suggest a second party involved, that includes even our school nurse, that includes, EMS or any type of emergency responder in this case, some smaller injuries that tend to happen, right? If they have a cut, a small cut, I'd like to have that reported. But those that are significant, we say a rolled ankle is significant, a concussion, of course, that is significant as well. And our direction to our coaches during our coaches meeting, and it'll be reiterated on Thursday for our athletics meeting, any type of injury, at least the very least, let us know right away, right? As far as an email, hey, Mr. Alvarez, this happened at practice, so we could just keep track of it too. And then of course, anything that goes to the doctor, we need to make sure that we follow the doctor's orders, because I just liability, right? Oh, that he's okay. If they say, hey, you're out for 2 weeks, we have to make sure that we follow through with the doctor's orders as well. But that was reiterated that was said to our coaches during our coaches meeting. If they're unsure, like, just let us know, don't question it, especially if it's significant enough where it requires medical attention.
Mr. Alvarez, I had a question. If our new athletic director has had a chance to review the handbook.
He actually was part of the process of developing the handbook. Yeah.
And then I just see a typo on page 5, privilege.
Okay.
That's the teacher in me. I apologize.
Yeah, no. So we'll do, of course, and we're gonna have a second set of eyes also.
Okay.
Just review it to its entirety, just to make sure that we tying that up. The other thing on there's the table of contents are a little out of whack too. So we're gonna go in there, Miss Rocho is gonna help us organize the table of contents to reflect the entire athletic handbook.
Cool.
Athletics and activities. We can't leave activities out.
Regarding the question about injuries, and I don't know if this would be necessarily in a report or anything, but there's sometime an injury occurs and the student stays playing with a chance to aggravate that. Is that something that should we look at in a policy, or is that something that should be reflected in the handbook?
Absolutely. So one thing is we have to rely on our training. So yearly, our not only do we take vector trainings here within our school district, but coaches also have to take precautions and take those yearly, which we do have on file. It's one of the requirements to obtain and to continue having their athletic license, if you will. But of course, at the end of it, I think I'm not saying it's coach's discretion, but you got to know your kids, and you have to know, like, if it's a risk, don't chance it, right? Because at the end of the day, it could lead to something major. For example, a coach may not know of an injury, but we need to really let the students know as well. Like, hey, don't just tough it out, and something serious could happen from it. So of course, encouraging that dialogue, and not take those, like you said, let's not take those risks. Absolutely. So to answer your question, I think it is covered with our with our training that we do throughout the year. Absolutely.
And this is more of a comment because I don't think it's ever going to change. But if you ever come up with a plan to change it, that'd be great. Dual sports. Okay, we know, and I went through it myself with my two daughters that graduated, and other kids as well. Is that when they play two sports in the same season, they go and work hard at practice here. They got to leave, and they understand they go to this one, but in reality, they'll probably never get a starting spot because in the coaches' minds, you're not here at this sport full, or you're not here fully, and we got to share you. And there's really not been a dual answer, an answer to where, you know what, yes, they want to play dual sports, but then is there a consequence for it? We say no, but there is, and the answer, I don't have an answer for that for a very long time. But
Yeah.
and some coaches, they do follow and some don't. You know what? I don't want you working out this week with this sport because we have an important game Friday. I don't want you working out right here. So it's just, sometimes it might not even be benefit to even do a dual sport, for the student, but that's a future talk for now and not to change. I just kind of wanted to make that comment.
Yeah, no, and
if you ever come up with something.
Yeah, just to, of course, coming from a small school myself, of course, everybody plays everything, right? And I feel like there has to be that collaboration, and it does cover inside of our athletic handbook, where dual, I guess, participation is allowed, and we are not gonna allow coaches to how can you say it, take that opportunity away from our kids, right? Our students. On a side note, we are going to establish our coaches handbook as well, right? Where that's going to be laid out there, and on their their process, their procedures, even down to like purchase orders and travel and things like that. Just so we have that covered, moving forward, and of course, to maybe an answer. Well, actually, a solution and answer to both of your questions there is we have a duty to our students, right? We have the obligation to hold that standard and that ethic and moral, and that's policy in itself, right there. That's one of the first things in there. So of course, my responsibility as the administrator is to make sure that we're following what's best for kids, right? And of course, holding our policy. So if I have to have those tough conversations, with individuals, as far as as long as I'm made aware, of course, I'm more than happy to have those types of conversations, whether it's dual participation or if I find out like, hey, you let this kid play and he's hurt, that's not so I think we're covered even with our ethics and our duty to the profession.
And you mentioned the coach handbook.
Absolutely.
Do we not have one?
We don't have one. So before, it was actually embedded into our student athletic handbook, but that's why it was like 50 some pages. I saved the portion of that was primarily towards coaches, and we're going to start looking at and developing that handbook, and hopefully, and I don't want to wait on it, to be honest with you. I think we're in a situation where I'm not going to say we're panicking, but there's always that sense of urgency to make sure that we get that done.
Thank you, Mr. Douglas.
Okay, thank you. I don't know if we have any more questions. Anybody? No. And need a motion for the approval of the athletic handbook.
I move that we approve the athletic handbook 26-27.
Motion
Sorry.
and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye, please.
Aye.
Thank you, Mr. Alvarez.
Thank you, President Carrillo. Thank you, members of the board.
Next, we have the discussion and approval of Idea B application. This was talked about in the finance committee, right, Ms. Begay?
Yes, and
Um,
I had asked some clarifying questions and Dr. Gutierrez explained thoroughly. So it's my recommendation we approve.
There's a motion. I'll second. Any further discussion? Okay. Motion is second, so all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Next, we have the discussion approval of FY 26-27 transportation contract with Montoya Transportation. This was also talked about at the finance committee, right?
Yes, and Mr. Brett Caston with Porter Transportation came in, answered questions, said he'd be happy to work with the district. He said this is like his 40th year in student transportation contracts. And so we asked some questions.
I believe I also asked the question that Mr. Williana had asked at the board meeting about, and I'm gonna try and find it right now. The months, and I think it's fixed now, so it's
Oh, yeah.
July 1st now through June 30th.
Correct.
That was
We've
corrected,
added the
so,
correct dates.
and that's gonna be on both contracts.
Correct.
Right. So I'll need a motion for the first one.
I move to approve the fiscal year 26-27 transportation contract with Montoya Transportation.
Need a motion
Second.
and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Next, we have the discussion approval of FY 26-27 transportation contract with Porter Transportation.
Mr. President, I move that we approve the fiscal year 26-27 transportation contract with Porter Transportation.
Motion? And a second. Just for discussion, again, that was the same problem with the years or the months, so that was fixed. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Next, we have the approval of bar 024-000-2627-003-D13000 pupil transportation.
This was also discussed in Finance Committee. I move that we approve the bar 24-000-2627-003-D 13,000 pupil transportation.
Have a motion?
A second.
And a second. Any further discussion on this item? And I'll signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Next, we have the discussion and approval of bills June and July of 2026. Also discussed at the Finance Committee meeting. And I think there was just a few questions on some vendors that were clarified through Vertex, right? Again,
Right, we're still waiting on one more. I think Chris Moore was gonna follow up on, I believe it was a furniture company or I can't recall.
He did send an email.
Yeah, Dr. Gutierrez, that's the one that I emailed you.
Okay. I wasn't sure if it was you or Mr. Moore. Do you want to clarify that, Dr. Brunton?
Yes, the question, if I remember that correctly, was which building that the purchase with that check went to. And it was some office furniture and it went to the admin building. Does that answer the question?
Yes, ma'am, thank you so much.
okay, then just need a motion to pass the bills for June and July of 2026.
So moved.
Motion. I'll second. Any further discussion? No further discussion. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Now, L, discussion and approval of credit card statement, June and July of 2026.
This was also discussed in finance. We talked about Uber Eats. And Dr. Gutierrez assured us that she was speaking to employees about food delivery service. And we also made mention of the out-of-town charges. And then a hotel booking service fee as well. Was there anything else?
And this was done before Dr. Gutierrez was here, so now she's implementing this.
Yes. And one of the things, if I may, with the hotel bookings, we have to be really, really careful because they kind of sneak that in there, that it's a third party booking. So sometimes you could be, let's say, for example, if you're booking the Marriott, you think you're booking through the Marriott, but you're not. So we just have to be super careful when we book that we don't end up being rerouted through a third party booking platform.
That was it. That we discussed.
I think you had a question about coaches having a credit card. You had asked
Yes.
if every coach had a card, and then there was mention from Mr. Alvarez about having one card and coaches go sign it out from him. I think that was mentioned.
Right.
Yeah.
Those were discussed. I just don't know what the answer was or the solution, or we're still working on it. I don't remember.
Mr. Alvarez, do you want to speak to that?
President Castillo, members of the board, just to that clarification, we did have that discussion during the finance committee. So right now, the head coaches at the high school, are issued a credit card, which they have in their possession. So instead of doing that route, and that this includes those at the middle school as well, we are collecting those credit cards, and those credit cards are going to be housed in-house. And once they do their purchase order and get approval of that purchase order of that requisition and go through that process, follow the proper process, then they could either myself or Ms. Rocho will be the ones to sign it out, and they'll actually have a physical sign out sheet of the date that they're signing it out, right? And then when they return, they have to return it back in with the receipt as well. So just like Dr. Gutierrez mentioned, having those internal controls just to make sure that we're not coming out in any type of audit findings or anything like that. We're making sure we clean that process
Thank you.
up.
Thank you.
Mhm.
In previous years, we had people that carried the credit cards with them. And the guy that worked at the Texaco, when it was still Texaco, called and reported one of the employees for filling his truck up with a school credit card.
That's why we're putting in internal systems of control.
All right. So I just need a motion.
I move that we approve the credit card statement for June and July 2026.
Have a motion
I'll second.
and a second, and go ahead, Mr. President.
Before also, there used to be accounts set up at stores like Ace that would be to the individual, and it was charged to Cobre. Do we have those kind of accounts still that you know of?
Yes, sir, we do. We have, like, for example, we have an account set up at Ace Hardware, and that account is currently under Mr. Plasencia's name. And he should be the only one that can walk into Ace Hardware to make a purchase. I found out this morning that Ace does not follow up, and they don't request an ID, because we've had other maintenance workers go and pick up materials from Ace Hardware. So there needs to be a discussion with Ace Hardware, or we just need to not allow that process anymore, because if the business is not following up, then what is the point of limiting who can and cannot use that charge account?
And before, I know that when Dr. Spalletta came on board, he found out that there were 25 such accounts set up at Ace.
That's good to know. We will follow up on that.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Okay, so there's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. We'll go to M, discussion and approval of fourth quarter financial report. Don't have any questions. This was come to the finance committee as well.
Go ahead.
Does that reflect all the expenses or are there still some outstanding expenses? that are-
That's
or
where,
encumbrances?
that's what was reconciled up to June 30th because it had to be submitted to the PED. So it's all accounts reconciled up to June 30th.
Including carryover or?
Yes, sir.
We just need a motion.
I move we accept the fourth quarter financial report.
Motion and a second. Further discussion? And all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I
Motion passes. Next we have N, discussion and approval of stipend schedule changes.
So on my end, you saw the changes that were previously made and they've been reverted back to the June 19th schedule that was approved by the board. And the only stipends that were removed are the ones that would create a financial violation. So those have been removed. And then Mr. Alvarez wants to speak to the athletic stipends.
President Carrillo, members of the board, I'm not necessarily seeking approval, but more of a suggestion to have our coaching stipends be returned back to the finance committee for review, just with further guidance from that I received from our lawyer that works with Title IX, just to revisit some suggestions that she had. So just to revert it back to, of course, the finance committee for review, and then of course ultimately bringing it back to the school board for final approval.
Would that involve some kind of equalization?
With Title IX, yes, absolutely. It does. It does. Equity amongst sports.
Cool.
You also added a coach to the football, right? And an additional assistant?
Yes, yes. So of course, just to run down the suggestions that I have in order for us to move forward with the coaching stipends. Specifically, I looked at, of course, I did inquire around the state, including districts that were larger, districts that were smaller or equal size of our school district. But key things that of course I looked at was, of course, recognition of programs operating as one unit. That was one area that I looked at. So that's, for example, track, cross country, powerlifting. Those are acting as one unit since they're traveling together. Two different units is like basketball, right? Girls basketball and boys basketball. They don't practice together. They don't travel together. They pretty much operate separately. And then, of course, as mentioned, just improving the equity between comparable sports, or for example, boys baseball and softball. There was some, because at the end of this, I think it's this month, I want to say we do have to do an equity report that's reported to the state, and in that report we provide the amount of participants and the amount of coaches that are within their respective, and that's all of our sports, right? And then that's including baseball and softball. So there is a revision there of adding a coach to softball as well, and ultimately, and of course, it is equitable as well. I guess we could mention this. Middle school football, they only had one paid coach. However, there's a safety issue there as well, where volleyball has two coaches, and this is during the same season as well. So just keeping in the forefront of that as well. Just and of course, taking into consideration the season length, right, and the workload there. Just overall developing that system of consistency within our athletic program. However, of course, just taking it back to our finance committee, it would be more so just to refine those, not necessarily agreeing with all the revisions or my requests, but more in the sense just looking at it from an equitable lens and just trying to make sure that we're were good. But to answer your question on football alone, there was also an update to wrestling as well, and both are really contact sports, right? Those are probably the main two contact sports that we have. So yeah, just really looking at that and providing that additional support, that support there to help with the overall safety of our students, especially on those high impact sports.
So, Mr. Alvarez, are you suggesting that we table this for next month so you can present to the finance committee your Title IX comparison and stuff?
Absolutely, yes,
is that
that's
what you're
exactly.
suggesting?
Yeah, that's what I'm suggesting.
On the golf team, is there girls golfing?
To my knowledge, yes, there is, and that is considered so going back and getting that information, that is considered a year-long sport as well. So just having to look at
Do we have
at
a
that too.
substitute, or should I say, an assistant coach that's a female, so that if they go out of town, the girls have someone.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a question across the board, right? Even with our boy athletes, because there may be a point. I don't think we have boys that are competing in, let's say, cheerleading, right? However, that's a topic of discussion as well, right? For both boys and girls that participate in that sport, right? But to answer your question, and I spoke to Dr. Gutierrez on a solution to that, right? To make sure, because right now we do have a female that is participating in football and really game planning for that. So I made a few suggestions to Dr. Gutierrez on how we could support that student, on the Title IX, side, and just making sure there's that support for her. But if we're ever in a position where there's a boy participating as well, we could follow that same process, so it's sustainable for the future. But I could elaborate on my suggestions if I'm not too sure if we're crunched for time, but there was just discussions of possibly paying per diem, right? So not necessarily paying a whole coach to fill in that spot, because there is 2 coaches that are allotted for right now. I believe, even if it as is with golf respectively, right? However, we may run into that issue. What if it's 2 male coaches, right? And we have females on the team. So my suggestion was pay them per diem, similar to travel for like myself or any other employee.
Pay who per diem? I'm sorry.
Pay
coaches?
No, it would be another staff member that would help with supervision. So for example, for our football team, if we look at it, of course, and look at it from the activity side, and perhaps pay for that out of the activity funds if our funds are, of course, available and everything, but possibly paying per diem for a staff member to attend those games on the bus, for the female, and vice versa for a male that's with, a female. So that's just a suggestion, and it's similar to, let's say I travel or Dr. Gutierrez or any other staff member, where we basically compensate for that.
Is that a
for the
change in the
travel.
stipend, or is that a stipend you want to add it in, or is that something that you guys can do on your own without board approval of the per diem part?
Dr. Brenton is nodding her head. Dr. Brenton, do you want to speak to that?
Yes, so the board has the ultimate financial accountability, responsibility. You set the budget, and then it's actually the principal who determines the coach schedule and all of the things that pertain to the management of the school. So if there's no change in the amount of scholarships, then there's really no need to approve anything. If there is a significant change and we need to do the bar, then the board would need to approve that. Does that answer the question?
I believe so. So you're saying the board doesn't have, you don't need board approval to pay per diem
for the
for
per
a
diem.
female or a male, but
Just keep you guys
staff.
aware.
No, thank you.
for
You
Title
wouldn't.
IX.
No.
Okay.
But yeah, really looking at that, and that too was some guidance that we received
And that's what you
from
wanted
Title
to
IX
change
as
on
well.
some, right? Or add?
So with that's separate, but
Okay.
those are the request on the revisions of I guess you could say that the coaching stipends in general. I would like to go back to the finance committee, discuss those discuss those revisions, and then ultimately, if it is recommended from the finance committee, then come back to the board in September and make that.
Of course, we're August. Is this going to affect any football contracts, any volleyball contracts that are going to be issued soon here? By us tabling this till September and going through the finance committee, is this going to affect the sports coaches that are on now?
To my knowledge, and you, of course, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm not too sure if they signed their I guess their contract specifically for the fall sports, or is that?
So fall sports, Norma has reached out, Ms. Ramirez. We were waiting on how we were going to pay, and we decided to follow Silver City's structure where they have one payment up front and then the second payment is at the end of the season. So now that we finally made that determination, and it was, I believe it was it wrestling or powerlifting? It was one of the coaches, Trujillo, that their season was throwing off the winter sports. And so we were trying to figure out that particular sport is a really short season and it throws off the rest of the winter sports. But Ms. Ramirez was trying to figure out that how it would be paid. And then she contacted them and said to go ahead and come out and sign their coaching contracts.
So what you're going to propose on the changes, does that have any effect to them right now?
So
I mean, is there going to be like less than what they signed for already, and then we got to go sign again?
They haven't signed yet.
Oh, they haven't signed the contract.
Ms. Ramirez has them, but to my knowledge, she didn't have anybody come in yet. But I don't know that we want to wait till September for sports that are already in progress.
yeah, absolutely. So if we could potentially maybe expedite that or
Special meeting? We're doing a special meeting?
A special finance committee meeting?
I mean, are coaches aware that they're gaining a coach or losing a coach for their program? Have they been told?
Yeah,
about the
I've spoke to a large amount of about the coaches, and including those that were considered programs that are operating as one unit. I have spoke to a few of those coaches. Can I sit here and say all of them, every single one of them? I cannot, but I did reach out to.
Because it seems like it affects powerlifting. Because they had an assistant that was girls specific, a powerlifting that was an assistant boys specific. On the current stipend the board approved.
And you wanting to change what on the?
So to be honest, to be completely transparent, of course, ultimately, if we don't go forward with absolutely creating all the revisions, right? Like as I would bring to your guys' attention, of course, just making sure that there's that equitability in a few of the sports, that we could just make sure that's part of that finance committee, and those are primarily in the spring, right? And I could elaborate on baseball. Baseball has 3 paid coaches, and softball only had 2 paid coaches, right? It's similar of sport, right? So if we were to add a coach in that respective in softball, right, then that maybe that's going to suffice us for the Title IX.
So let me ask more questions that I asked. If the board decides to approve the stipends right now as is, because what you're saying is, if I'm understanding correctly, some of the changes that you want to implement are for the spring.
Yeah, yes, yeah, and winter, and winter, and there's a few in of course the fall sports as well. But ultimately, if we revisit this next year at a better time, then maybe we could make those suggested revisions. But I would highly recommend, of course, that softball coach. I think there may be that would be the one that would be honestly will be suffice.
Well, we have the opportunity now. I mean, and I'm not saying right now, but Dr. Gutierrez and Mr. Alvarez, it's up to you, all of you. If the board wants to table it to September, and we can call a emergency finance meeting, and you can present that within another week or so, or if you want to wait till next year too. I mean, I'll leave that suggestion up to you all. If that's something that you think this revised that you've worked on, you want to try and implement that now to make more sense to the budget and to us here, the opportunity's there. I mean, it's gonna be up to you. We can always, like I said, we can call financial committee meeting, special one, and then move forward. And we have to do another board meeting within the week. I mean,
If the impact is primarily to winter and spring sports, I think we can maybe approve fall sports now so that those coaches aren't waiting. And then make the modifications for winter and spring sports. Would that be appropriate, Mr. Alvarez?
It would. The only other consideration would be cross country, because cross country is technically recognized as like operating as one unit. However, in another, I guess another way to look at it, we do have middle school kids from 6th through 8th that are actually participating. So that makes sense to have, two separate head coaches, which is reflecting on the current stipend schedule in that case. So I think it would be fair to say the only thing we would be losing out on is a football coach, and then also a middle school assistant coach to that as well.
if we move forward, just approving the fall.
If
we would lose out on that.
Yeah, we would lose out on those,
I wouldn't want someone to lose out.
on those two. Yeah.
I'm
Well-
also fine with having additional board meetings if
Okay.
need be.
Well, it's up to the board. I would,
So you said you weren't able to talk to all the coaches, just the majority.
I talked to the majority, but also during our coaches meeting, I did let them know, hey, there is gonna be some impact on that, on those stipends, right? Where we have to really look into those stipends. So it was elaborated during our coaches meeting where we spoke to all of our coaches.
And you have an athletic meeting on the 20th, am I right?
Yes, for parents.
For parents, okay.
and our students, our student athletes.
I mean, here's
middle
my
and
thing. I
high
want it to
school.
be fair. I don't want, and I know you wouldn't go back and say, "Wow, the board approved this, so you're done." To whoever's gonna not be a football coach or lose out on whatever you're going to propose to us. So that's just me and my opinion. I would be able to call a special finance committee meeting so we can hear and see your revised and see if it makes sense of it, or maybe it's not going to work, or maybe it will work.
Yeah.
But at least we went that route instead of saying, you know what, the board went ahead and approved, and you're out basically.
no, absolutely.
Even though you probably already gave him a heads up, but I just don't think you got the fair chance to present to us what you want to present. So, in my opinion, and I don't know how the board feels, I would make a motion right now to table this for next month, and I'll call a special finance committee meeting.
I would like to make a motion to approve the 2026-27 stipend schedule, because it was my understanding the CTE had a tie to a grant and that needed to be approved. Is that correct?
The grant has already been issued, the next gen, and that's why those were added on there. And I gave you some documentation for letters and some documentation for, there were 2 other documents that were added. So we already have the CTE grant, and those stipends are not going to be paid out right away. There's an extensive documentation process for those. If you want to separate non-athletic stipends from athletic stipends, you could also do that and approve the non-athletic stipends, because they did get lumped together.
So I guess I would like to revise my motion to approve the 2026-2027 non-athletic stipend schedule.
Okay, so your motion, to be clear, Ms. Begay, is to revise the motion. You want to approve
The
the
non-athletic.
non-athletic one? Okay, and that won't impact the
No, yeah, and then on the athletic side, I think it'll be great to be able to have that opportunity with the finance committee, and then of course get some feedback
Okay.
on what we could, and maybe we come up with what we had approved and what we are potentially having, and bring it together and make a
No
make it
problem.
right for our.
So
our
there was two
district.
motions. I made a motion first to table. I'm going to remove my motion. So the motion is going to be, Ms. Begay's. Can you say it again, Ms. Begay? It's too much. Your
I'd
motion
like
is going to
to-
be on the table
I'd
now.
like
Mine's
to
already-
revise my motion to approve the non-athletic stipend schedule. And then I guess I can add, and then to table the athletic stipend schedule until further review.
There's a motion? I'll second. Motion and second. Any further discussion? No? All in favor for this motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you,
Thank you.
Mr.
Thank you.
Alvarez and Dr. Rivera. Okay, so next we have our second reading on approval of policy advisories. The first one is 275 GCIA Teacher Residency Program. Anybody need to add anything or discussion on that? Trying to open it.
I think you're set up to receive public comments. I don't know if you've received any public comment on any of the,
I have not. Where am I sitting?
they usually email
Oh,
you.
email. Okay, no emails on this. No questions. We'll move on to the second one, 276. JICJ, use of cell phone and electronic devices in school. I believe there's two that we'll have to decide, right?
Yes, Mr. Carrillo, there was two options and the board requested that we get input from the community. Principal Begay and Principal Alvarez did so, and Mr. Alvarez, did the community prefer one option over the other? Do you want to speak to that? We're going to keep Mr. Alvarez very busy tonight.
So of course, speaking on the community aspect of it too, we need to send that out to our I guess you could say our parents and students specifically, but according to our staffs, there was some feedback on how we.
Which option did they prefer? One or two? Do you remember?
I can't recall at this
Okay.
time. Yeah, I
This
can't
was
recall.
just to staff, though. It hasn't gone out.
It
to-
hasn't gone out to like parents
parents,
or anything
okay.
yet. So just to staff.
And the language between option 1 and 2 is very, very similar. There's just a little bit of variation. And I believe, if I'm remembering correctly, option 2 was a little bit more restrictive than option 1. I know that at Snell, Principal Begay, I attended her talk to the 8th graders and she was very clear, like there's no cell phone use at Snell. They're used to it. That's what they do. I haven't had an extended discussion with her about, does anybody try to sneak a cell phone? And, they're adolescents, they're going to try it. But she was very clear. We don't use cell phones at Snell.
What do they do with the cell phones? That they keep them in the backpacks, or they turn them into the front?
So when they're
office?
confiscated.
Or even, when you see them.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a directive from me to our staff they need to take the cell phones, right? There's first offense, second offense, third offense, and ultimately, reoccurring offenses, right? However, we are a campus and we're trying, I'll be quite honest, it's hard to curb that behavior since it was so long that they were kind of like on it, right? So we're doing the best that we can. So for example, I directed our staff, don't get in a power struggle. Like at that point it becomes a compliance issue, right? Failure to comply than anything. So if it's their first offense, it is taken to the front office and it's returned to the student. It's returned to the student at the end of the day. However, parents are notified and we let the parents know, hey, they're on their first offense, and we're tracking it. So we have a tracker, internal tracker that we have, on first offense, second offense. Second offense, parent needs to come by and pick them up, and I will be making that phone call, to the parent, hey, just to let you know, you're already on number 2 on and this is all electronic devices. That's including headphones and cell phones, and it don't get me wrong, it's going to take a little bit to curb that behavior, but we really want to emphasize the importance of staying engaged in school, right? And then of course, third offense, it's a ban completely from our school. So they would have to turn it into the front office, and either they keep it at home or they bring it up to the front office and we check them out at the end of the day. We also are looking at a grant. Myself and Dr. Brunton and of course the help with Dr. Gutierrez, we're looking at a grant to potentially help with this type of behavior. There's some devices that there's a pouch out there, and there's even a glass case that you could put a device in there, and they can't access it. Now there is those TikToks and those videos where kids are breaking into those items, but I'm not gonna issue 300 and give them to everybody, right? It's going to be as an intervention. Say you're on your first or second offense. Okay, hey, you got to pouch it up, and we give them that pouch, and then their electronic devices inside of their bag or in the front office. So we act as an intervention. So to answer your question, they do have them on their person, either in their pockets or in their backpack, but ultimately out of sight, out of mind, right? So that's what we're trying to implement. Are we at 100%? Unfortunately, I'll lie and say yes, we are, but we're getting there, and it's going to take a little bit to continue to curb that behavior. But
so,
there's before school and at the end of the day, they could access their
and let me
phones.
share with you, just I'm for this, and I see both alternatives, and I see that there should be no. I see this all, but let me share something with you. And that happened last year. Is we actually had a student that ran from the officers at the high school, and the officers lost the student. We didn't know where it was at, the student. So a former student ended up calling Central Dispatch and saying, "Oh, they're hiding over here," and that they were able to assist us on that part. So I see the education part of it, but on the law enforcement side of it, how helpful that was to apprehend the student that and he ended up taking a knife to school, but to apprehend him with the help of another student there at the school that just happened to have their phones in their pocket. I don't know if they turned it on or what happened, but I see both sides. So like I said, I can't say I'm against one or the other. They were able to assist us. They helped us a lot, but then I see the education part of it. So
yeah,
They were probably location sharing, because adolescents do that these days. They share their location with one another. I'll just leave it at that statement. We also need to think about the electronic device portion of this. We talked about it at the last board meeting. Smartwatches, Meta glasses. We essentially are chasing technology, because it's not just cell phones that you can communicate with. Like I shared with you, I have my Metas, and I can be pretty far away from my phone and still give the glasses a command, and they do connect. So like if my phone was in my office right now and I was wearing my Metas, it would connect, and you guys can have that for my reference because you know where my office is. But it's not just cell phones that we're chasing.
Yeah, and then on that too, I think we need to look into an AI policy as well. I think we need to really look at developing that, and maybe we could establish a committee. I already have a few staff members that would probably be interested in helping out. I know for a fact they would be interested in helping out, because it could be useful. Don't get me wrong. However, it could be that negative side as well, right? So to kind of collaborate with all the electronics and all the technology is just wild nowadays, right?
I had a question. Absent any adopted policy, how can you enforce it at this point?
So we could make it, I'm not going to say an overall policy. However, it is a guideline that we have at our school, right? That we could enforce, and not only that, it is also state law, as well, that we need to make sure that students are on task without their electronic devices. It is difficult, right? Because it's everywhere. It could be headphones one day, it could be an Apple Watch the next day, or it's their phone. So it's hard. But at the end of the day, if we enforce it, it is looking at what's what's the best interest for students. Because as I mentioned in the previous our previous board meeting is that sometimes phones, it come with a price also, right? Because there's that facilitation of hey, meet me here for this. Hey, I heard that he was talking crap, and it brews up, right? And then we fall victim to cyberbullying. But to answer your question, there is some guidelines that have implemented.
If we were to go through a challenge, and we don't have a policy that allows that, wouldn't that be consequential on our part?
It definitely would, and we don't have the option of not having a policy because we're being told, it's been mandated by the state of New Mexico that we have to have a policy.
And I think we do have a policy. Am I right, Ms. Church?
Correct. So we do have the policy. It's actually on the website under the board policies, and we did submit that to the grant application. That was a required part.
You also included it in your student handbook that you presented to the board. It
Yes.
was addressed in there.
In that policy, does it state, what does it state?
So the only thing that it lacks, when I looked at it, was bow to bow. Like no electronic device from bow to bow. Like that was the area that I seen that was lacking more of, to be honest with you. And bow to bow is a little vague. It could be bow to bow for one period, but in my opinion, in my I guess my thought process, it's the beginning of bow to the end of the bow, right? So during the entire day of school. But I do know that there is schools out there that are actually allowing students during lunchtime to have their phones, and we're not allowing that right now at the high school. But I did mention to the students, it's a possibility to earn it, right, without having any infractions of so they could earn it from, of course, before school, at lunchtime, and at the end of the day. However, I could tell you they didn't get it this go around, but yeah. So to my knowledge, when I read it, it just needs to mirror like either bow to bow or something in the sense like I think it does talk about instructional time as well, but are we going to do it from the beginning of the day to the end of the day, or is it class to class? Are they able to use it during transitional time? So just clarifying that within our current policy.
Dr. Gutierrez, we're talking about students. What about faculty?
That's a great question. I don't think we are obligated to monitor staff use, but from my perspective, if we are having an expectation of students, then we should model that expectation. In my previous district, the superintendent said we were device-free during cabinet, and it was really, really hard for all these people to put their phone down and their laptop away. Unfortunately, we are dictated by technology, and we would need to probably include NEA in any kind of directive that we give, so that it is understood and it's mutually agreed upon with the representatives. I don't want to just say staff can't use their phones anymore. I would want to work with NEA to have anything in place.
Yeah. But in the time being, we do have a policy, and I'm not going to say it's a vague policy, but it kind of covers it, right? The duty to the profession, duty to the students, right? Because if a teacher steps outside and answers a phone call, right, and then it leaves their class unattended, and something happens in that classroom, right, we have to address that. So it may not say it directly, however, we do have policy to that we could enforce when those actions occur.
Thank you.
Okay, so then we'll move to 277, the JLCEC cardiac response plan. Automatic external defibrillators. Any comments or corrections or removal on that part?
Just something that I learned last week. We don't pay for those. The Southwest Regional Collaborative pays for them. And they make sure that they stay up to date when they were purchased and when they need to be replaced. So we're very fortunate that that's not coming out of our budget.
Does that include training?
They can provide training for us if so needed.
That would
And
be an expense.
they would not charge us, no.
Okay, and the final one for this topic is the 278 JLF reporting child abuse and child protection.
No public.
So, and this was a second reading. With this, we would need a motion to, so it can pass to the third, Ms. Charlene, or the final one? Or is it the final one?
The second to the final one. Yeah.
Okay, so then we gotta go back to the use of cell phones, so we have to pick one. Right, the alternative one or alternative two? Right,
I'd like to make a motion to approve our policy advisory 275, GCIA teacher residency program, 277 JLCEC cardiac response plan, automated external defibrillators, and item 278 JLF reporting child abuse and child protection. So I move to approve those, and I'm in that same motion, move to table policy 276 JICJ, use of cell phone and electronic devices in schools.
okay, so there's a motion
I second.
and a second. Further discussion?
Which was the part of, which one of the cell phone? Would that be option 1 or 2?
Yes, that's the one that we're, she's requesting a table, alternative 1 or 2. We would have to pick.
Okay, so we got to pick that.
Mhm.
And 2 is the more stringent one.
Right, it's a little bit stricter. So we just want to make sure that we get more community input on that.
Okay, so there's a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
So can we approve that cell phone one? Can we table
It-
that one?
It's being tabled.
It's being tabled, so the
Okay, I'm
motion
sorry.
is to go with
Okay, I'm
275.
sorry.
No,
Yeah.
it's okay. So just to clarify, your motion, Ms. Gabby, is you're motioning to approve 275, 277, and 278.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, and tabling 276 for this use of cell phone.
Yes.
Okay, and there's so a motion and a second on that. All in favor signify by saying aye.
I
Motion passes. We'll be tabling that. So next we have P, second reading and approval of the policy activity fund. Really, it just kind of spells out what you've already mentioned, Dr. Gutierrez and Mr. Alvarez, and what to expect from internal controls and whatnot.
Correct. And as we mentioned at the Finance Committee meeting, there are 4 interns at Vertex currently trying to reconcile the activity funds. And so having this policy will help us moving forward to ensure that we're not having accounts that are not reconciled. And I know several of our activity would like to know their balance. So what I'm telling them is this is the amount that I have as of the last time I requested it. However, it may be different because it hasn't been reconciled. So it gives them somewhat of an idea of how much money they have to work with, but it's not fully accurate because it hasn't been reconciled.
This is the policy that I saw the reference to PSAP. Where we can't use that as our internal control if we adopt it to affect our processes.
We can use it as a starting point, and Dr. Brunton and I have had conversations. There's handbooks that need to be written. There's policies that need to be strengthened. So we are definitely working towards implementing those internal controls.
Okay.
Right, so if,
Mr. President, I move to approve the policy activity fund.
Have a motion
A second.
and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye, please.
Aye.
Motion passes. We'll go to new business. So new business, we'll start with A, report regarding the innovations program, including but not limited to who ran the program, why did students go without pay for 2 to 3 months, why did the program run out of money significantly before the end of,
The school year.
I'm gonna say the school year. What new internships opened this year? How are employees of the student affected by the early termination of student employment?
So,
Gutierrez.
yes, Mr. Carrillo and members of the board, I was not present when this happened. However, Ms. Chavira was, and she has a lot of history that she can share with you. And then Mr. Alvarez can address some of the plans moving forward. So I'm going to hand it over to Ms. Chavira and Mr. Alvarez.
Thank you. Good evening, President Carrillo, members of the board, Dr. Gutierrez. I was tasked with to provide some clarification regarding Innovation Zone's work-based learning salaries and the timeline. And so I did some research, looked through many, many emails, and this is what I found. So last year, the grant was released in July. Applications were due in August. During previous years, when I was in charge of the grant, last year, Mr. Corey, Zoya Provencio, and Margaret Rocho were in charge of the grant. The years before, I did Innovation Zones. And previously, the application was released in April. And usually we received an acceptance letter or a denial in August. So we somewhat knew what we were going to do. Last year, it was, again, they didn't receive notification of the grant until July. Applications were due in August. So they didn't even receive notification that they received the grant until November. And when they did receive notification, it was only substantial approval, which means partial approval. At that time, they said that we could start spending the money down in November, but we were not able to request money back. So we could not submit any RFRs. So we would pretty much have to flip the bill if we spent anything on that grant. We would flip the bill until we received full approval. We did not receive full approval until January. So you can see that the timeline was much different than the year before. So with that, it was directed to us that, first of all, they didn't even want us to pay student salaries yet. But we thought, okay, we got to get this grant started. Let's start working these kids, right? And so what we did is we started working the kiddos, but they were not able to turn in their timesheets yet until we received full approval. So really what they were doing is banking their hours. And then when we received full approval in January, the students did turn in their timesheets and they were paid for the back pay when they started in November, December, and January. So that's how that timeline worked. The grant did end earlier because we did expend all our funds. They planned on about 25 to 30 students at the beginning, but then more students were interested. So at the end, we had 50 students. And that was a decision of the grant managers to add more students. With that, again, because of that, we ended a little earlier. Usually you do end in the middle of May. So really they only ended 2 weeks earlier. The year before, when I was in charge of the grant, we did not expend all our funds. And this grant, you do not receive a rollover. So we lost out probably on maybe, let's say, I don't know, $10,000. So we decided, let's expend all these funds. Let's do it. Even if we might end in April 30th, we'll expend all these salaries. So they did. So they ended 2 weeks earlier. I did speak to Margaret Rocho and I asked, well, were the employers, the partners, notified that the students might end a few weeks early? And she said yes. So Shane Stevens, who is our shared employee with Silver, who was a work-based learning coordinator, did call some of the businesses and let them know that, these kids might be finishing a little earlier this year. And so Shane called, I guess, in March and also in April to make the businesses aware that the students might be finishing at the end of April. Let's see what else. This year, it's even later this year. We just were notified a couple of weeks ago about the grant, the application. Remember, when I did the grant, it was April that we were given the application. This year, it's now August. We were given the application with the due date of September. But on a positive note, if we do get this grant, and probably will not get notification until maybe, let's say October, probably it gives them a month to review all the grants. They will provide funding for 3 years, which is good. We can make plans for the 3 years. It's really hard to make plans when you don't get the awards until, what is it? They received the award in November with partial approval, and we didn't even get the funds, the permission to start spending permission to request the money back until January. So it was really hard to do a program. So I have brought Mr. Alvarez here, and he is going to speak about his plans for work-based learning for this school year and where they are at in the grant writing for innovation zones, which is due in a couple of weeks.
Absolutely. President Carrillo, members of the board, just to let you know our vision and our idea for our CTE program in a whole moving forward, right? And I say it's because it is our CTE team that's going to be taking reins of this, led by, of course, Mr. Garcia, who has had numerous of years of actually writing these grants and as our CTE teacher, but also Miss Ryan and Mr. Burnett and man, I'm missing somebody else. I know, don't hate me, guys, but of course, Miss Ryan, Mr. Burnett, Mr. Garcia, and Mr. Young. So they're all looking at it together, and they're actually in the process right now. And I just connected Dr. Brunton with Mr. Garcia in the process of putting in for this grant. Of course, it's not for certain if we're going to get it or not, right? It'll be definitely be nice to have, especially if it's 3 years, right? And that's going to help our students. But ultimately, we really want to look at the completion of our CTE programs, right? Because we may have 50 students participating in this, but are those 50 students completing the program in itself, right? Because there's a 3-step process to it. So if you're in business, there's requirements year 1, year 2, and ultimately you get into your internship or dual credit in that respective field. So when it comes to setting that guidance, we are going to be really focused on those completers of that CTE program. And if there's ever that opportunity to how can you say it? I guess because it's just not purchasing. It's not just having students, how can I say it? It's just not paying students. There's a lot more you could do with that grant. There's training involved that's paying for some of their dual credit classes, right? Training even for our staff, right? Or having after school programs for our kids, which I could elaborate a little bit off of the Perkins and Next Gen. That's what we want to do for one of our employees there, that actually is running one of our programs. However, the ultimate goal is being sustainable, self-sufficient, right? So we have to really start looking at our CTE programs, and that's going to be on top of academics and on top of athletics, on top of all that. But CTE is really going to drive a lot of students here for our district because of the opportunities that we provide to our students, right? So we are looking to make sure that we are self-sufficient, because that's what these grants want. They want us to be self-sufficient and not necessarily always asking for this grant money. So to do that, of course, there were some things we had to work on collectively as a CTE team. So for example, we're gonna get that business store going this year, 100%. It's a non-negotiable. We're gonna get that, and in order for us to get that done, we need product to sell in that business store, right? So we are going to depend on our wood shop, right? We have three dog houses ready to go, so we have product in there. Mr. Young, he's providing, they built a trailer, right? So that's ready to be sold. We have our media that is helping, with producing our t-shirts. We have producing hats, right? So that's going to be that self-sufficient that we want in the future. And we'll have our own business right there at the high school, and we have the space for it, and that's what we're moving towards. So it doesn't necessarily, and it's going to be open to the public as well, right? So that's going to help with that. And we have to be a little bit creative as well. Like if, for example, if we do something during our athletic events or something that's going to really display our students' work, then we're gonna do that. But ultimately, that's the direction we're going. And I go into the new internships. We have the new internships in house, so we don't have to, because there's three different times or three different things that we're having our students participate in right now. We have work experience, which they're getting paid on their own, or if it's to Workforce Solutions, right? That I'm going to be quite honest, and that's something that we really need to consider, because a student could be gone for 3 hours of the day in the afternoon, right? But they're not working at that time. Instead, they're working in the weekends, accounting for those times, but we're giving them credit. So that's eliminating that opportunity, not to necessarily. And this is work-based. I'm meaning like if they're working at Lotta Burger, or if they're working at Walmart, or that's the work experience. So really looking at that, and we wanna give that opportunity in house for our students, so they don't have to leave, because once they leave, it's accountability on us, right? Like I every day I get worried that when our students leave campus, but we're cleaning that up. We have internships that are unpaid. So for example, it's not CTE like focused, right? It's something that maybe they're if we could support it with our CTE and our paid internships, absolutely we'll do it. But we have to really have that justification for our CTE, our program there. And we want to really, because that's what the state wants. That's what when we do these grants, they want to have an end product, right? And ultimately, and I'm going to say this, that is economic development in itself. We are investing in our students, which in return is going to invest in our community and ultimately give back to our community. So that's our ultimate, our ultimate vision there. And we're aligning it to our graduate profile. We're revamping our mission and vision as a school as well. We just had that meeting this morning with our leadership team because we're going to be rolling, and we're going to make sure everything that we do is student-centered and is going to have the best outcomes for our students. And I'll say this, right now, and I said this to a couple students, and I said it to our staff. Why not us? Why can't we be recognized as the best high school in Grant County right now? So that is something that I'm going to push for. I said that to our couple of our students, some of our staff member, and parents. That's where we're headed.
Great. That is great. That's a lot of info. Thank you. Thank you. If I just may add, is from what was on the agenda here and the experience that some of these now 18-year-olds, 17-year-olds had last year was not a good experience, only because they were asked, or they were allowed to work. They were allowed to work, even some from September to October to November, and get paid until January. They banked their hours, but they got paid. I wouldn't want to do that. I mean, who here would actually want to go work and then not get paid till 4 months later? So I love the fact that you're all working on this now, getting a better vision for it so that these students don't go through what these other students went through. Because some parents and students reached out to us and we're trying to get answers. We're trying to see what was going on with the money. Some were told what was happening. They didn't like the answer. I mean, I get it. But like I said, some of these 17, 18-year-olds already had a bad working experience. It was great when they got paid, and then it went on flow there. But I'm very glad to see your vision, the vision you're going, and that way it doesn't happen to these students again. And they get paid for what they work in 2 weeks or however the payroll is set up. But I think that for me, and I'll let Mr. Oleana elaborate, that was our concern is, okay, well, what happened here? Because we don't want that to happen to these students anymore. We're trying to prepare them for the real life, real world, right? And
yeah.
we just gave them a check saying, well, you're not getting paid for the months that you worked for these 2 months, but they did get paid. I mean, I see that, but yeah, and maybe, yeah, I know, and now.
We could have waited
Mhm.
and we could have started in January, but it was directed that we start the program. And then I was hoping maybe we can flip the bill for a couple of months. That was my request. Can't we just flip the bill for a little while and pay these kids and then we'll get reimbursed in January? And the answer was no. We were not willing to flip the bill. So we had to wait until January to pay the kiddos.
Understood. Yeah, I remember most of the talks and stuff. But like I said, I'm very glad to hear that we're moving forward and in a positive way. And thank you both very much. Go ahead, Mr. Oleana.
And for that part, it's disappointing that we actually said, no, we're not going to foot the bill. That's a really bad sign. But the other part too is to expand from the 25 to 30 to 50 students. That kind of perhaps contributed to the depletion of funds and the early end. And again, that would be a management decision.
Definitely. That was a management decision at the high school to add more, 20 more students. So again, when you add 20 more students, it stretches the funds more. I mean, there is a positive to it. They have, you have more kiddos getting work-based learning experience, but again, it stretches those funds. So you will end up ending the grant earlier.
Yeah, because when it comes to these grants, right, they want an end product. So, but ideally, when they complete the program, right, they need to have some type of something to show for it, right? It just can't be, I got paid for it, right? I would like for like some type of certificate to be attached to it, and that's what they wanna see, because at the end, it's not always. Yeah, getting paid is very, very nice, right? It's but at the end, like the overall thing is getting that experience in some type of profession, right? So
Well, and it looks good on the resume.
and it looks good on the resume, absolutely. And it aligns. So like to answer your question, the 20, 30, 50, right? Like how many of those were actually the completers of the program, right? So exactly. So that's why we have to lay it out, and it's something that we're definitely working on, where you will see, if you're in business, you have to take these courses, level 2, this, and then ultimately, then that's when you get that internship or dual credit or both, right? So that's the direction we're heading.
Yeah, and this isn't a reflection on anything you've done. You obviously knew, but the decision to make 50, to get up to 50, then what do the other people do that all of a sudden the program stopped? What fills in their schedule for the rest of the year?
Yeah, and ultimately too, right? And I said this earlier too, but we can't get in a panic, like we got to spend. There's that sense of urgency, but there's a step. Because like I mentioned, it could be different, things that we utilize those funds for, right? Of course, that could be the priority, is of course those paid internships, but of course looking at other means, right? Equipment, right? Just recently, just today, as a matter of fact, our compressor in our wood shop just went, like, it isn't doing good, but that's something that could be.
But to me, this is more an issue of decisions rather than circumstance. And the other part is, we're supposed to be going well beyond the CTE part of it. And there was a doctor here that was interested in getting a student, and I mentioned that to the person that was running the program, or he was aware of it, and he does gastro surgeries, and he uses a scope, and he really likes to engage students on just the practice of using basically like playing a video game and doing a surgery. That never happened. That connection was never made. We need to look at the career
Yes.
element of it, not just the technical element of it. And at first, that needs to be a big part of that.
And
So I didn't see any outreach to the medical side. I did see some in the nursing part, but I don't remember if that was last year or not. But we need to see those that are here, and that I think would have a very important impact.
And you and I, Mr. Board Member Guadiana, I could tell you we're on the same page right now. As we written the grants, right, we put in for 4 of the pathways, which is welding, carpentry or construction, business and media, right? So. And I actually reached out to Ms. Cruz, who's actually works for the NMPED, and it was in the beginning of the summer, but it was already submitted for Perkins. But I do want to open up healthcare, as a pathway. I want to open up law enforcement as a pathway, right? I want to open up potentially education as a pathway as well, right? Because we have rooms full of educators that these students, so when they do go to Bayard Elementary or Central Elementary to intern, we're not trying to justify it because, oh, they're in the business side of it. We're justifying it because they want to be our future educators, right? And if they fall in love with that profession in return, and again, economic development within itself, they could come back to our community. So one thing that I have on my horizon for those that are in education, why can't they take their praxis test and come back as a potential EA for us? So right there, right after they graduate, right, they could turn around and they could become an educational assistant. Why can't our law enforcement, right, or why can't they be CPR certified right off the bat too? And then they're employable. So we have that, like I said, that certificate, that employable skill that they could be. But absolutely, we are going to open up those pathways.
We have a fellows program that could feed into this as well. And so we should talk.
We're gonna get there. I give you my word. That's on our horizon, and we have our CTE team, right? That's we're all working on it, and they're seeing the same things that you have mentioned, as well. They're seeing opportunity, and that's why I say at the end of the day, like we're gonna expand. We're gonna take off. Just give me a little bit of time, and I promise you, it's gonna take off.
No.
Yeah.
He said a little bit of time, Mr. Guadiana.
Any more discussion on this? Thank you
Mr.
very
Alvarez.
much, Mr. Alvarez.
Thank you,
And
Mr. Albert.
Ms. Chavira, thank you. Ms. Audrey, I'm going to apologize because I just saw that G is update on forensic audit findings, and if I would have noticed that, I would have moved you guys up or requested for this board to move you up. So I apologize.
Mr.
almost
Carrillo, I
there.
actually think that's me answering that because Mr. Guadiana had asked for progress on
Oh, so it's not.
on corrective
so you just
action.
didn't- Okay, I thought maybe they were going to.
They can stay and help
But-
me answer questions, but
Things on here that you may have questions for us.
Okay, no, perfect.
We're happy.
I just didn't want you to stay and if you didn't need to, but no, we welcome you. Okay. So next we go to B, discussion on a resolution against President Carrillo for not complying with his responsibility for placing board member requested agenda items on meeting agendas, imposing 2 sanctions on board member Guadiana that were without merit and extending 1 sanction into a new term of office without any action cited in the occurring new term, and not allowing investigations of issues of reported board malfeasance. Mr. Williams.
As it stands, and actually, this is an item I requested several months ago. And at this point, I kind of wanted to leave it for another month, but it's recommended that we go forward now. And the reason I want to kind of leave it for another month, because I got additional things to add to the resolution. But as it was stated, there was, President Carrillo did come in, I believe, in November of last year, and immediately started with the sanction for having written a letter to the editor, which is a First Amendment right. And it did not disclose any confidential information, nor did it defame anybody. It was a clear statement of facts, and yet that resulted in a sanction. And then, beginning the first meeting in January, there was a second sanction citing the action that was taken in the previous year, and not relevant to the new term that I had just won re-election for. That again is a violation of rules. And while I brought that up in the discussion of its presentation, it was still voted 3-2, or 3, I think you abstained, 3-2, that it be sustained. Therefore implying the two people voting for it for the same malfeasance. And I will want to bring that up again at a different forum, being a legal one. Then, okay, I think that's the first two sanctions. We can move on to C if you like.
Sure.
Or C, D, and E. I think she wanted to include them.
Right, but there's also, it says discussion, so I get the floor now if you're finished with B.
Sure.
Thank you. So what Mr. Mariano is talking about is the sanctions that were implemented did violate board member policy. They were presented to the board. They were voted on. It went to legal counsel before it went to the board, and it was voted that Mr. Williana had violated board member policies by going to the media. Now, items that he's requesting to be on the agenda is really part of the reason that I don't want a Jerry Springer show on the board anymore, because it was out of hand. Now, the items that he requested was personnel stuff. Personnel issues that were already dealt with not with Dr. Gutierrez, but with our old interim superintendent. He dealt with those issues, and he reported back and had taken care of them. But not only that, so I'm not going to place personnel issues on the agenda, but Charlene is our secretary. And I mention her only because she sends out emails, numerous emails, saying, you know what, you have a deadline to put things on the agenda. I need it by this day so that she can put out her legal notices. She can put out the agenda. She can put out, and Mr. Oleana just seems to not meet that deadline. And when he does, if the deadline is Friday at 10, he'll email Friday at 5. So it's just very hard to work with that. But other than that, we're ready to move to C if you don't have anything else, Mr. Oleana on B.
Yeah, for rebuttal to that. Some of the agenda items requested went on for 3 months without being posted. And the other part having to do with the personnel parts were the action taken by a board member to access employee records, which is a violation of our policies. And that was also something that you evidently used your own discretion to decide I wasn't allowed to do that, when it's perfectly within my purview to ask about that question.
Okay, is that it, sir?
Yep,
All
that's
right.
it.
So let me just remind the board that I don't really decide what's on the agenda myself. It gets discussed with the superintendent, and then from there, we have questions, we ask legal counsel. So I just kind of want the board to know that I don't, it really doesn't come down to the wire to me whether things go on the agenda or not, but it does get discussed with other people involved, so.
And such discussion is not shared or justified and leaves us where we're at.
Right. So we'll move to C.
Okay.
It was requested in the beginning of the agenda that C, D, and E be all discussed. So I'm going to read C and then I'll notify the board D and E, but I'm going to read all three together there.
So C, discussion on a resolution against member Begay for providing financial benefit to her mother as a principal of the middle school, resulting in a daily rate of pay that was higher than the high school principal and the superintendent during 2025-26 school year. D, discussion on a resolution against member Begay for not complying with a special audit, one requiring testing effectiveness of the corrective actions cited for each finding cited. E, discussion on a resolution against board member Begay for not keeping the board informed on the PET's consideration of sanctions being considered to reduce the state's funding to the school district and potentially remove all board members because of a long-term failure to provide adequate fiscal management. Mr. Guadiana.
Okay, let's start with C. As it stated, there was a rate of pay that was decided for the principal of the middle school, who is the mother of Ms. Begay. And evidently, Ms. Begay engaged in the discussion regarding the total number of days. What was the argument was that the base pay was established. With nobody was contesting that. The question was whether the days of the number of days worked on contract was something that they can be varied from based on, I guess, the district's choice. That base pay went down to 178 days when other school districts use this, including Silver, one of the best examples, use that same base pay for 260 days. Seeing that, even suggesting that variable of moving the number of days is in compliance with our responsibility to make sure that we're not paying somebody for days not worked is really the forefront issue. And to this date, I still do not know whether, and that's the missing piece, is the date that's prescribed as the minimum pay tied to a fixed number of days worked. And that I plan to pursue to the latest, but it's inconceivable to me that you could be paid for that same rate for 260 days. And then we decide, no, you know what, you just work 178 days with that same pay. So I feel that's a very substantial issue. Also, the issue of her involvement in that decision for that. Okay. Also, her inclusion in the discussion for determining that rate of pay is a conflict of interest. And the board was never notified about this pay in terms of being at a higher level than the daily rate for either the principal at the high school or even for the superintendent, which should have been red flags for anybody handling finances to say that this perhaps could be incorrect. That's my position.
Mr. Carrillo, can I address item C?
Yes, Ms. McGee.
So the allegation that I provided financial benefit to my mother, who serves as a middle school principal, is inaccurate. As a member of the Finance Committee, I participated in the review process along with Board President Carrillo and other people present at Finance Committee meetings. The Finance Committee reviews salary schedules and stipend schedules that are prepared by the superintendent or their designee, including the Human Resources Coordinator. Following the Finance Committee review, the salary schedules are presented to the full Board of Education for final consideration and approval. This board approved the salary schedules on June 15th. I was absent from that appointment or from that meeting due to a medical appointment. At no time during this process did I advocate for, request, or otherwise attempt to influence my mother's salary. There are finance meeting minutes documenting the proceedings, and individuals who participated in these meetings can attest to the fact that I did not advocate for her compensation. I also do not have the authority to draft employee contracts, establish individual salaries, employee salaries, or negotiate contracts on behalf of the district. I'm an elected Board of Education member, and I am not an employee of the district. There were also multiple board discussions during the 2025-26 school year regarding administrator salaries and how these salaries are established. At a board meeting held on September 15th, 2025, under new business item D, Mr. Guadiana requested discussion regarding posting administrative salaries on the district website, specifically for administration, principals, and dean of students. This matter was addressed and the salary schedules were posted on the Cobre Consolidated School website. Mr. Piper, who was serving as interim superintendent at the time, addressed this matter. Additionally, at the November 17th board meeting, under new business, Mr. Guadiana again requested information regarding salary schedules and how administrative salaries are calculated. Mr. Piper provided in our board packet with information from the Mexico Public Education Department regarding administrator licensure requirements and salary assurances. I have the 15th minutes here, the 17th. I also have what was included in our board packet. If anyone would like copies. Additionally, at the November 17th board meeting, Mr. Frank Ryan and Mr. Piper explained to the Board of Education that the district cannot establish administrator salaries below the state minimums. They also explained that the number of contract days for administrators is a local district decision. These discussions are documented in the board meeting minutes and the November 17th meeting recording. The recording is available on our website. I also want to clarify that the statement that the middle school principal was paid more than the superintendent during the 25-26 school year. This characterization is inaccurate. During the 2025-2026 school year, we had an interim superintendent, not a superintendent. His contract and salary were negotiated and brought before the entire Board of Education for consideration and approval. At the January 7th, 2025 board meeting, the entire board voted in favor of the interim superintendent's contract, including Mr. Guadiana. The contract is still on the school website. I also have a copy of that. Therefore, it is important that any comparison of administrator compensation take into consideration the terms of the individual contracts, including the number of contract days and other provisions. The allegation that I personally provided a financial benefit to my mother is not supported by the facts or the established district process. I'm willing to provide all these copies that I did mention.
Thank you.
I would like to get copies of those documents, but nevertheless, my position remains the way I stated. The next one is that the resolution against, discussion and resolution against member Begay. Oh, I'm sorry, you read that or do you want me to read?
I read already CDE,
okay.
so you can read or however
Okay.
you.
E has to deal with resident board member Begay not keeping the board informed of PED's consideration and sanctions being considered to reduce the state's funding to the school district and potentially remove all board members because of long-term failure to provide adequate financial management. And this goes into two sections. One, not being able to provide adequate fiscal management. We have gone through 6 audits, or actually now knowing that it's back to 2018, that we've had findings that have been repeat findings. We have no establishment of internal controls, as mentioned many times. The forensic audit has a specific mention that we are to do testing to ensure that what our corrections have we've stated to be are being effective, or alter them so they become effective. The action that we cite that we've taken to mitigate the findings have not been acted on. We pose responses to the findings that are either falsehood outright or well-wished intentions. And with the exception, for instance, of the discussion of the forensic audit, there were 11, the previous audit, the 2022 audit, there were 11 findings. three of which have been remedied, evidently one partially remedied, and the other ones remain the same. The action that's been taken is to not address, action's been taken to not address some of the findings intentionally. One of them was when we actually voted for having the biometric time clocks set up. It was approved with the exception of Board Member Begay, who voted against that measure. Yet we are currently using the handwritten timesheets that was present back in the days that we had this finding. A clear objection to any moving forward to comply with the requirements that we've been charged to meet. I feel that puts the district in complete jeopardy. And perhaps the only way that we're going to move forward on this is the removal of the school board, because this is just hitting barrier after barrier when it comes to our response to our fiscal position.
Mr. Carrillo, it looks like
Yes.
you combined D and E, so I'm going to go ahead and respond to those.
Yes.
For item D, the allegation that I failed to comply with special audit one by not testing the effectiveness of corrective actions does not fall within my duties or authority as an individual Board of Education member. I am not an employee of Cobre Consolidated Schools, nor am I a member of the district's financial department. I do not have the authority to implement financial corrective actions, conduct district financial testing, or direct district employees to perform specific financial procedures. The implementation and testing of corrective actions related to district financial operations falls within the responsibilities of district administration and the appropriate staff or their designees. Internal controls were discussed on numerous occasions during board meetings. Additionally, on Wednesday, July 23rd, 2025, former interim superintendent, Mr. Randy Piper, sent an email to all board members. I have the email right here. And it shows what corrective actions he was taking and all the internal control forms that were provided to the whole board. The fact that the board was informed about the district's internal controls and corrective efforts is significant. The board's role is one of governance and oversight. Individual board members do not independently function as district financial administrators or auditors. I respectfully maintain that I cannot be held individually responsible for performing corrective actions that I neither had the authority nor the employment responsibility to perform. I have a copy of the email if anyone would like it. And to address item E, allegation regarding failure to inform the board of potential NMPED sanctions. The allegation that I failed to keep the board informed regarding the New Mexico Public Education Department's consideration of sanctions is factually incorrect. On Wednesday, April 22nd, 2026, at approximately 5:29 p.m., former interim superintendent, Mr. Randy Piper, sent an email to all board members regarding correspondence he had received from the New Mexico PED. All board members were included in the communication at the same time. I have the email here with the date stamp, and it shows all board members were carbon copied to avoid a rolling quorum. Mr. Piper's email included 2 attachments: the PED letter, which we all received, and his corrective action plan addressing the concerns identified by the NMPED. Therefore, the assertion that I failed to inform the board of this matter is incorrect. The board was informed by the superintendent through a written communication sent to all board members at the same time. As an individual board member, I do not receive or control official communications between the district administration and the New Mexico Public Education Department. The correspondence in question was addressed to the interim superintendent, Mr. Randy Piper, and his communication to the board provided the information to all board members at the same time. It is also the responsibility of each board member to monitor district communications, review information provided by the superintendent, and raise questions or request additional information when necessary. If a board member has concerns regarding information, they should schedule a time to meet with the superintendent. In this instance, I did not withhold information from the board. The information was provided to all board members by the superintendent through the email. In conclusion, I respectfully request that the facts and supporting documentation be considered. In each of these matters, it is important to distinguish between the responsibilities of an individual elected board member and the responsibilities of the superintendent, district administration, employees, and other individuals charged with carrying out the day-to-day operations of the school district. I remain willing to provide copies of all this documentation that I have discussed. My goal is not to create conflict, but to ensure that any action taken by the board is based on accurate information, documented facts, and clear understanding of the respective roles and responsibilities of board members and district administration. In conclusion, I believe it is time for us to move forward as a board and as a school district. While disagreements and differences of opinion are a normal part of serving in public office, continued personal accusations, division, and what has become a pattern of mudslinging does not serve our students, our staff, or our community. Our responsibility as board members is much greater than individual disagreements. We were elected to provide responsible governance, support our schools, and make decisions that are in the best interest of our children and the families we serve. We owe it to our students to put aside personal conflicts and focus our time, energy, and attention on the work that matters most: improving student achievement, supporting our teachers and staff, strengthening our schools, and ensuring that every student has the opportunity to succeed. I respectfully ask that we stop focusing on personal attacks and accusations and instead focus on the facts, accountability, collaboration, and solutions. If there are legitimate concerns, they should be addressed through the appropriate processes supported by accurate information and documentation. Our students should not have to bear the consequences of division among the adults entrusted with leading their school district. We have important work ahead of us, and our community deserves a board that is focused, professional, and united in its commitment to children. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Ms. Gabby.
A rebuttal. The notice did come to us. We received no forewarning that we were in such a sad state of affairs that such a sanction was being considered. And that is how the agenda item is stated. The meetings include updates by the Finance Committee and the Audit Committee. Yet none of these updates were presumptive of the sanctions to be received on our part, and there was no discussion on the severity of the delay for all the actions we were supposed to have taken. Board members are not individually responsible for taking these actions. That's true. But when you sit as the chair of either the Finance or the Audit Committee, you have responsibilities to delve into the operation of the district regarding fiscal control. We have that responsibility first and foremost, and it's been put aside for years. There's been even efforts to not have published the forensic audit, to have kept it from public review, and that was a board consideration. So I absolutely disagree with your presentation, and I do think that the discourse and the discussion about personnel's decisions that have been made that adversely affect the district should be held in open session, should be discussed, and should have consequence. And in this case, I think this is one of the biggest ones, because I've been saying it for years: you can't hide what's going on. And it's taken this concerted effort to bring it to the level that it is now. Before then, as you indicated in your votes, you're not necessarily motivated to move in the direction of correcting this. That's my comment.
Thank you, Mr. Waliana. Then we'll move on to section F, discussion and sanction against board member Waliana. I want to mention that these items, A, B, C, D, E, F was mine, at G were requested by Mr. Waliana to be on the agenda. They were gone through legal counsel. Legal counsel said, you guys need to discuss these. Said, okay. I didn't agree at first, and at the end I said, well, it's really not my choice, but we'll put them on here to discuss this. This is something that Mr. Waliana, he's been here for 8 years, if not more. And it's just the type of leadership that he'd rather do this instead of lead by example, right? So on F, Mr. Wilgis, you asked, why do you want to table it? Well, it's all discussion. So I want to make mine pretty clear that there is a sanction that's being worked on for Mr. Waliana, and that's for when he was sanctioned back in January. He had to take training, and he had 90 days to come to the board and present a certificate of training. Yet we're August. There's nothing there. The sanction that's going to be imposed is also from back in May when he again spoke to the Silver City Daily Press on what? 6 litigations that he's involved in. He went and spoke and made comments. You all remember that. And even one of the attorneys suggested that Mr. Waliana need to be sanctioned. But to be honest with you all, what are we going to sanction him on? What can we do to you now to help and work with you? Nothing, because you're out of the committees. You're out of, almost everything. You just don't like to work with the board. You're even imposing that maybe even Pet comes down and takes over. Pet doesn't need to come down and take over. We just need to work together, but you refuse to do that. So part of the sanction that's going to be is what I'm mentioning now. And the last thing we can do is we're waiting for NIPSIA. We're waiting for NIPSIA to give us an answer on if you're not going to follow, well, not our board rules and not anybody's rules. So if you're not going to follow NIPSIA's law, legal advice for you to comply with what they say not to do, then they shouldn't cover you in financial wise. Then you should be paying for these 6 lawsuits that you're in. That should come out of your own pocket, not NIPSIA, and doesn't affect the board or Cobre School District. So you know now what's coming and what's going to be proposed. And I was going to table that, Mr. Wilkins, but now you know as well.
I can't hear you.
I was going to table that, but I'm not sure if you heard everything I said, then that's okay. But you know what, Mr. Wilkins, these are all discussions, and I was really opposed to having this Jerry Springer type of talk and running this board. But again, I was advised by legal counsel that this is the way it had to be. But I also advised legal counsel that these items and these things were going to be brought up. So with that, that's the discussion that's going to be sanctioned on Mr. Waliana in the next month or so. Mr. Waliana, I'm going to assume you want to rebuttal.
Sure. Starting off your first day as sanctioned, and then beginning the new year when it was clear that there was nothing there that you could cite, you cited a previous, you cited the letter that I had written in the November prior to being elected to a new board. And by the way, I'm only on this board because I've been re-elected.
Right.
And
the people are starting to know the truth, though. They got to see all this. What's going on behind the scenes?
Change my ways anytime.
Anyway, so we're discussing your sanction on this new sanction, right? Is that what you're rebuttaling on F? Discussing on the sanction?
No, I'm
against
rebuttaling on your comment. You went on
well,
the sanction,
you can rebuttal
yes.
on this sanction. Go ahead.
Yes.
Yes.
So, and you started sanctions and illegally done sanctions. And the fact of the matter is, this is almost the same way that I stepped into the board back in 2018, where there was a constant consistency between 3 members of the board voting in concert to oppose a different opinion. I can't raise opinions here because they won't have any fruition. This is the only way, as I succeeded in changing the board construction by doing a recall, which this is leading towards. removing 2 members and then the 3rd member resigning, who actually was a family member of the 2 others, unbeknownst to us when we appointed him. But anyway,
I think that's false. No one was removed. They resigned. PED didn't come and remove them.
They resigned.
Right.
Another one removed himself.
That's what I'm saying. They were all
Resigned.
removed.
Yeah.
PED didn't. I'm with you, but
Removed
you
himself.
got to state some facts, sir.
Removed himself, and there's
Okay.
some similarity there. But nevertheless, this is how we got to the forensic audit. Had that not happened, we would be operating, if we had this cordial demeanor where we don't challenge each other and we look at things that are going on and kind of turned a blind eye to that, that's not me. That's not me at all. And when I see the complete actions taken to remove me from certain things, to keep everything under the rug, that's where I stand up. So I'll take your sanctions. And I was asked that not too long ago about how do you explain the 3 sanctions? And this is beyond the ones that we're talking about. I told him, because each time that I'm getting sanctions, these are the things that I don't intend to stop, that need to come out. And personally, that's why I've been reelected. And that's where I'll be.
Thank you, Mr. Williams.
If I remember the January meeting, when he was just reelected, I did mention that you cannot use something that a newly elected person did in a previous year before the reelection. And everybody just blew me off.
You mentioned it, Mr. Wilkes, but you were wrong at that when we looked into with legal counsel. Just like you mentioned the flags that were illegal and I don't know whatnot, and I brought you proof and you said, oh, it must have changed last year. You mentioned that as well.
I read
So
the laws, and that is a trade flag. That's not a US flag.
it's not illegal, Mr. Wilkes.
No,
We're
it's a
okay here.
legal flag, but it's not a US
No,
flag.
it's not.
You
sir.
espouse,
yeah.
you
So-
espouse working together. I mean, you're just the prime example.
Oh,
of
yeah,
how that works.
absolutely. So if the Jerry Springer show is over now, we'll move on to G. And Miss Audrey, I apologize for you and your partner that have to witness this whole thing, but this is part of a board that we need to improve so much. And we've done good things. We really have. And we're with your report and all that, we're going to keep doing what we can, what's best for the district. But I apologize for you witnessing this and the people online. So next is G, update on forensic audit findings. I really thought it was going to be them, but go ahead, Dr. Gutierrez.
So Mr. Guadiana had requested an update on the progress on the findings from the special audit. I can tell you that I used the special audit and the letter issued by the PED on April 17th to guide a lot of the decisions that are being made currently. So when he requested that, I'm been in the process of putting the special audit on our website by each finding so that people can have information and color coding it. It's taken a lot of time because I have to do that outside of work hours and on weekends, and there's a lot of copy pasting. But since Mr. Guadiana requested this, I created the document that you have in your board packet to track each of the findings. There were 23 in the special audit, and I added the ones from fiscal year 23 audit to this tracking document. It's a working document that I've shared with Dr. Brunton and other staff members because we need to track what we are doing. You'll notice that there's a lot of red because things are either not addressed or they do not exist. There's some of the green, and anything that was green prior to me, I added an asterisk. If it was done after June 15th, there is no asterisk. There's a lot of work that needs to be done. The deadlines are all in red. It says deadline not met, deadline not met. Some of these deadlines were back in 2024 and they were not met. These systems of control do not exist. And we are in a precarious financial situation. I've been very clear about that. Some of my words have been misconstrued or taken out of context, but I have been very clear. This district is in financial crisis, and we must address this, or we will never get back on solid footing. Like I said, Dr. Brunton and I are working on this. We received from the Jaramillo Accounting Group the new requests for the audit, and that includes 120 items. As soon as I received it, I started assigning the items to individual staff members because we are not going to wait. We are going to get everything uploaded, and I have set a deadline of Friday, September the 4th to get the majority of those items. And, you know, I will give credit where credit is due. My executive secretary, Charlene, already started getting me things, and she was the first one to start completing her list. So thank you, Charlene, for that. Some of these items, that's why I was talking to Ms. Jaramillo when you pounded the gavel that the meeting was starting, simply do not exist. And so for some of her 120 items, I'm going to be very honest and provide a memo that says this documentation simply does not exist, or this financial control was never in place. So this document that you see before you is on our website under the Financial Services Department, as is the letter from the PED, as is the special audit report. The fiscal year 23 audit will go on there. I am committed to being fully transparent with this community so that they know that we are moving towards being a stronger district operationally, academically, financially. And this will be updated on our website. I'm hoping to move it from all the red, orange, and yellow to green. And I just noticed the orange and the red is kind of hard to differentiate from one another. But I was just trying to get you this document in time.
Thank you, Dr. There's one question I had, and it's going to be a simple question to a complex answer, maybe. Is the questions I'm getting out in the public is, yes, some know about our financial crisis, some don't, but we see everything, we see everything here, okay?
Yes, sir.
So with you or Ms. Audrey answering this question, what would your timeline possibly be that we'd be back on track with what you're seeing from Dr. Gutierrez? Is she's working on getting everything. I mean, that's a question that the public has asked us out here. Okay, we're deep in, we get it, and we're trying to get out of this. But how long will it take you all? And I don't have an answer from, but now that I have you here, I mean, wow, what are we looking at? 5 years? More? 3 years? That would say everything goes good? I don't know. I mean, we are trying here to.
Well, Dr. Brunton and I mean, when you all entered into negotiations with me to become the new superintendent, I told you I will not come here without a 2-year contract, because I had the tip of the iceberg knowledge of what was going on here. And I think I have a little bit more of the tip of the iceberg, but I don't know what's underneath the water. And I told you I would not come here without a 2-year contract, and you issued me a 2-year contract. That's the beginning of getting us on track. I would say 3 to 5 years, we might maybe be in a better place. And I am incredibly happy that Dr. Brunton has joined our team, because this is her 3rd week, and she has already done so much work, and will continue to do so. So we're trying, but I don't know. Ms. Jaramillo, what is your assessment?
Well, what we've seen with entities in the past is that to fully turn something around, get findings cleared, get stability, get everything implemented, does take 2 to 3 years. but I don't think it'll take that long to get through the historical audits that are pending. I'm really hopeful, but I will warn you that it will take the CFO and the contractor, because again, one person can't do it all. And having the contractor that really, really knows New Mexico school government accounting is just, I think, absolutely critical. If you don't do that, then those resources decrease, and then everyone gets spread really thin, and then the audits just kind of get on the back burner again, right? So let me think about timing here. So they are working, as superintendent said, on FY24, providing things to us. And you have to think of an audit, or at least we try to explain it sort of as like if you're manufacturing something, you need the raw materials. So if you're making a car, whatever, you have to have the steel, you have to have the batteries, you have to have everything that it takes in order to put those raw materials through the process to get your car on the other end. Well, this report, it's the same way. We have to have everything from the district in order for us to test it. And auditors have to remain independent. So we can't create your books and then audit your books. So it gets frustrating for us because a lot of times, the auditors aren't getting it done, right? But that's because we don't have the information. And even as it is, a disclaimer audit opinion is still saying we didn't get everything that we needed, guys. We got through the audit, but it's a disclaimer. It's not a good audit opinion. So we can get you caught up through those disclaimer audit opinions with as much information as you can find and you do have. But at some point, it's really going to have to step up to get current to where those balances are solid. You know your transfers, you know your cash, and the findings are starting to get cleared. It does take time. It really does take a lot of time. But we do see it turning the corner. I did want to just say that we weren't made aware of this sanction letter. So as I'm hearing this and reading that on the agenda, I was pretty surprised.
The PED sanction letter?
Yeah. And from
You did not
April,
know.
I think before your time here.
Okay.
If we could get
That's
a copy of that would be great.
I will send that to you
Okay.
right now.
Okay. I could have missed it, but I don't, it's a pretty big deal. So
Yes.
I think I would remember.
And I will say I have been in communication after I created this document. And I mean, it's, I don't know, what, like 80% read, or maybe even more than that.
Mhm.
It raised a significant level of concern for me beyond what I was already experiencing.
Mhm.
And I reached out to the PED, specifically to Sarah Cordova. I've shared this document with her, so she has it. She is in conversations with people at PED. To date, we have not received the sanction of the 7% of them keeping our SEG. However, that may be something that is imposed if we continue to lack progress. And I mean, you could see prior to June 15th, the lack of progress. And moving forward from June 15th to present day, I am pushing people really hard. You have received the complaints. I know you have. You've received the text messages, the phone calls, the emails. I am pushing hard because if we lose 7% of our SEG and we only have enough money to run this district for a month, we should be held accountable for our lack of progress. And we should sit up here and have a good explanation for our community. So the 7% removal of our SEG is not off the table. It is under consideration. Sarah told me that she would follow up with me within the next 2 weeks. She's having discussions with the Secretary of Ed. She's having discussions with legal counsel for the PED. There may be more consequences for our district.
I'd like to mention that your entry into the Cobre School District has been a godsend. When you sat there in one of our first meetings and you told us there are state laws that are being broken, there are federal laws that are being broken, they're not to be broken under my watch. That was a clear direction that we had not received ever here. And so you've demonstrated, this being a good illustration of, you've demonstrated a path forward. And I really appreciate that. And I support you 1000%.
Well, thank you, Mr. Gariana, but I'm a licensed superintendent in 4 different states, and I have no intention of losing my licenses in any of those states. And that means that I have to hold the board, myself, and this entire district to account. I've worked really, really hard to be a licensed superintendent in 4 states. I'm not going to jeopardize that.
Well, when I drive by here, you're here late at night. You're here on weekends,
I know you yelled at me for that.
and I have to scold you and tell you to go home.
Yes, sir, you do.
So, because you need to get your rest if you're gonna keep the fight.
Yep.
And we got a long road to hoe.
Well, I will share with you, sir, that I was very energized yesterday by the monks up in the forest. So I took your advice. I did not work yesterday. I completely disconnected and spent some time with the monks.
Okay. Thank you. If there's no further discussion on the update on forensic audit findings, we'll move on to Finance Committee update. So on the Finance Committee update, we held a Finance Committee meeting. It was a very lengthy meeting. We discussed a lot of things that were proposed to us and whatnot, but I did want to bring to the board the policy. The policy of the board committee. There is 2 different things here as far as the audit committee and the finance committee. So I want to read to you on the finance committee. It says the Cobre Board of Education shall appoint at least 2 members of the board as a finance subcommittee to assist the board in carrying out its budget and finance duties. The finance subcommittee shall, it goes on to make recommendations of education in areas of financial planning, including reviews of the district revenue, expenditure projections, review financial statements and periodic monitoring of revenues and expenses, annual budget preparation and oversight, and procurement, and serve as an external monitoring committee on a budget and other financial matters. Reason I say that is because I'm going to read a small paragraph of the audit committee. The Cobre School Board shall appoint an audit committee that consists of 2 board members, 1 volunteer member who is a parent of a student attending the district school, and 1 volunteer member who has experience in accounting or financial matters. The superintendent and the business manager shall serve as ex-official members of the committee. Where did extra members to be on the finance committee come on board here before I got on track? Do you guys remember? How did we get 2 members of the public on a finance committee? I understand the board, on the audit, but I don't understand how a finance committee, we have 2
It was the
board members.
past practice that we discontinued. It's been there forever. That I know of, I guess the 30 years of the previous board.
Okay,
It's to keep
but
the-
that's not on the board policy. So do we change
it's to
that?
keep the school
Or
board
do you guys want to,
honest.
because there's an issue that took place that I will bring to your attention in next meeting, but do we keep this board policy or do you guys want to keep
It's our
a
call.
keep a 2-member?
It's our call.
Because I can tell you that legal counsel has advised us not to have members of the community on finance committee. But we have been doing that, and I just noticed that this time, and because it was an issue. Like I said, from the update that I'm giving you all, I maybe put it on the agenda for next meeting then and see if we keep it as is right here, or we go against legal counsel and add 2 members, but I wouldn't recommend that.
I would not recommend going against legal counsel, especially in light of our concerns. And I have a significant concern from what happened in the finance.
Yes. So that's my update, and Ms. Gabby was there as well. If you have any more updates on that, I just kind of wanted to share with the board.
No,
this
no
post.
update, but just that it was practice when I came onto the board as well. And that member that we're speaking to has a lot of historical knowledge. I believe his brother sits on the audit committee.
That's correct.
Yeah, and like as mentioned, I didn't question anything when I became board president, and then I was in the committee. I just, now that we run into a few problems, I just kind of started looking at the policy and said, whoa, something's up here. So
And the email from our legal counsel was very firm that we need to follow her advice. And that would be my recommendation. I have a tremendous amount of respect for Ms. Gallegos. She has not led us astray. I don't think we should leave ourselves vulnerable to not following her legal advice.
okay, so that was it for the update on the finance committee. Now we'll go with audit committee.
Yeah, I can talk about it. So at the audit committee meeting, we were told that the audit report for fiscal year 23 was ready. It went to the auditor's office. I had to sign some documents and it's been presented to you. So that's essentially what happened in the audit committee.
Thank you. Nothing further. We'll move to board member reports. I'll start with Mr. Wilkes. Mr. Any reports? No? Okay, Mr. Guadiana?
I made a trip to Albuquerque.
Mr. Gadiana, could you use your microphone, please?
I'm sorry. I made a trip to Albuquerque to do a deposition. And it looks like the NIMSHA will be paying for that. So,
Yes, sir.
yeah. And that's about all I can disclose about that.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Begay.
I just want to wish all our students and teachers well wishes the first few weeks of school. I've enjoyed seeing their weekly agendas, especially the elementary, the pre-K students. And I see that they've already almost completed their BOY testing, so that's great.
Thank you, Ms. Harden.
I just want to echo what Ms. Begay said. I just really appreciate all the teachers and the staff, Ms. Charlene for all the stuff that she does, and everybody. Thank you.
I'll go last here, and I don't have much to report. I just want to welcome all the students and staff back. I do want to mention that regardless of what you've seen tonight here, we all have one goal, and that's for our students and faculty and staff. Our kids are our main thing, and I know that Dr. Gutierrez keeps saying that our students are students, and we're all here for one reason, and we work together to find a superintendent, find us a leader. We did, and we're gonna continue on. We'll get better. But Mr. Alvarez, I wanted to see where the status might be, and you might not have gone to it yet on the student rep. I'd like to see a student rep here from the high school.
I actually, he gave me two names.
Okay.
And
I'm glad they didn't make it to today's meeting, but
they didn't make it to today's meeting. So he and I need to coordinate how we get the two. Do they both come? Do they alternate?
I would say one. I think one, maybe they.
Or what if
however you guys want to work it, because it made a big impact, at least on our last student rep. She was really vocal. It's helped her. I really enjoyed it. And I think the earlier we get, if it's two, fine. If it's one, however you work it, but I like to see.
We have three actually, but we also wanted them to get in a groove. You know, this is the third week of school. So getting them in a groove and everything before we said, by the way, we want you to serve on the board meeting. So by the September meeting, we'll have them.
What if we did one for the fall and then one for the spring? Maybe that will help them with their schedule. Just a suggestion.
Thank you. So that's it for board member reports. We'll move to superintendent reports.
Yes, so we have a lot of fundraisers. There are 15 that have been approved. There's one for Mesa, one for Good of the School of Cobre High, and then the rest are, well, no, there's 3 for band, and then the rest of them are for our athletics. Volleyball has 3, football has 2, cross country has 2. So I'm working with them. I met with the cross country coaches, and they told me all about is it the taco 5K? Is that what it's called? And I told them I am going to be there eating tacos. I'm not athletic enough to walk or run a 5K, but I am athletic enough to eat tacos. So we will be there. We talked about the shirts. People are asking, like I said earlier, how much money do we have? And I wish I could tell them this is the actual amount, but I tell them, like, for them, they had a little over $5,000, and I said, give or take 1,000, because we don't know that all of your bills got paid. We're still reconciling that. I really don't want to be saying that to people, and I am not going to stand in the way of them fundraising. My concern is that we will hit sort of a well, I don't know that it would be a barrier, that we might oversaturate with fundraisers. That's my concern. This community supports our student athletes and our activities. I just do worry that we might oversaturate with fundraisers, and that might be an unnecessary worry. But I'm not standing in the way of approving those fundraisers. So you have them all in the packets. They're all signed. Support them as you can. And outside of that, I have positive, so we can stay on a positive direction. As of last week, I had asked Ms. Chavira, because I had a conversation with Ms. Harding around losing students to online academies and to homeschool. And she said, do you have a plan? I said, I do. I have a plan. And we're going to get to it eventually to, attract those students back to our district so that they're not going online or to homeschool if they see us as the best option. And you've seen Mr. Alvarez's energy. Sometimes I have to remind him because he always says one more thing. I'm like, no more things. But he's told me there's no reason why Cobre High School can't be a destination high school. And we have the 4 model schools and spotlight schools. So we're doing really well in, some of our academic areas. So all that to say, when we did the 120-day count in March, we had 871 students. As of last week, we are at 913 students, which is an increase of 42 students. Once we get to implement some of the recovery of our online students and our homeschool students, I really want to increase that by even more students. So a little bit of positive there.
Thank you, Dr. Peter. Okay, we'll move forward to number 10, executive session. Notice is hereby given. So at the Cobre Board of Education will meet in executive session for the following purposes permitted under the New Mexico Open Meetings Act. 1, so that the superintendent can update and discuss limited personnel matters as permitted under section 10-15-1H2 of the New Mexico Open Meetings Act. Need a motion.
Mr. President, I move that we go into executive session for the reason just listed.
Motion a second. Further discussion? Individual roll call. Mr. Wilgis?
Yeah.
Mr. William?
Yes.
Ms. Begay?
Yes.
Ms. Harden?
Yes.
Myself, yes. Time is 8:35 p.m. We are in closed session.
I've been here long enough, you know. At first, you know.
Yeah.
Well, next meeting, you want us to blur your face out?
Eight 59. Come back out of closed session. Number 11, reconvenience in open session. At the conclusion of the executive session for the statement affirming that no action was taken in executive session and that discussions were limited to the items listed in the agenda for the executive session. Need a motion.
Mr. President, I move that we come back into open session.
I second.
Motion and a second. Individual roll call. Mr. Wilgus?
Yeah.
And just to know, Mr. Wilgus is in the room. He's just in the back. You don't see him here. He's, Mr. Guadiana.
Yes.
Myself, yes. Ms. Begay?
Yes.
And Ms. Harding.
Yes.
Open session now. I gave the time earlier, so now it's 9 o'clock. Open session. Now I need a motion to adjournment.
Mr. President, I move we adjourn.
A motion and a second. We're adjourned.